increased by over 500,000 young people since your last SONA speech, Mr. President. If through sheer grit and determination, Kenya and millions of South Africans, of young South Africans learners beat these odds of poor quality teaching, overcrowding, dropping out, survive dying in a pit toilet or being stabbed to death, and in fact, actually pass a matric exam, chances are they will be part of the 68% of matrics without bachelor passes with slim chances of accessing an institution of higher learning. Mr. President, the real matric pass rate is in fact 54.6%, not 80.1%. This paints a darker picture than the one you tried to make us believe on Thursday. Your government has in fact left behind over 337,000 learners who should have completed matric in 2022. Mr. President, your government's sole focus on quantity means nothing if quality and depth in education is left out of the equation. Only 32% of this cohort achieved a bachelor's pass. And even worse, only 13% will access a university, and the rest will be left staring unemployment in the face. If Kenya and thousands of learners qualify to access a university, they might form part of the 50 to 60% of first-year learners who are unable to cope and fail due to poor foundational education. When the ANC education system is done with Kenya and the millions of young people, they will form part of the 7 in every 10 young people who are unemployed, standing at robots with their graduation gowns, seeking for jobs, sentenced to a lifetime of poverty by this ANC government. Mr. President, your party's broken education system has blacked out Kenya's light and shattered the hopes his parents once carried, load shedding his future and the millions of young South Africans like him to a life of unemployment. This, sir, is your government's legacy, the new form of oppression. I-ANC sele ijike yangumbutho wengcindezelo icinezela ulutsha laseMzantsi Afrika ngokubanika imfundo engekho semgangathweni, imfundo ezawubaqhubela kubomi bentlupheko apho bengazufumana misebenzi baphele bengomahlalela bekhongozele kulo rhulumente we-ANC onguhlohle zakhe. Nilibulele ikamva labantwana beli mongameli. It was at this podium last year, sir, that you promised to eradicate pit toilets and rapidly build more schools to curb overcrowding. Yet nothing was budgeted, no mention of progress in your SONA speech, and you had accepted some of my proposals. At this podium is where I warned you that poor quality teaching is a major cause of poor quality outcomes, and that you should prioritize the professional development of teachers and establish an independent school monitoring evaluation authority to monitor quality teaching in the classroom. Still no action. I pleaded with you to track, trace, and retain learners to schools so that we don't lose them to unemployment, poverty, or crime. You agreed, yet there has been no mitigating strategy to curb the problem thus far. Early literacy is the key, Mr. President. Last year, I begged you to prioritize reading, writing, language, numeracy by backing it with a budget to catch up, yet there is still zero in the basic education budget for reading. There is no silent revolution happening in our schools. Sir, there is a thunderous crisis. However, there is one place working hard to give Kenya a pathway out of poverty, where more learners stay in school until matric, where quality teaching is monitored, there is an investment in reading for meaning, and infrastructure is being built. Through its rapid school build program, the DA-run Western Cape has managed to build an equivalent of one school in every 4 days. Through its independent school evaluation authority, the Western Cape is promoting quality teaching in the classroom, and therefore learners get quality education. And through its reading program, the DA-run Western Cape is going all out to address the reading crisis. If children can't read, they are doomed before they even begin. Children in the Western Cape schools are spending an extra 2 hours per week on reading, and a new budget of 111 million has been allocated for reading, targeted at Afrikaans and isiXhosa schools. That is why there's double the number of children who can read in the Western Cape in comparison to the rest of the country. Sir, your new special purpose vehicle must fly off the paper and be implemented. Fellow South Africans, I know that many of you And many of you are Kanya, and your light too has been blacked out by the ANC government. Now is the time to cut the ANC's power. Now is the time to vote for the DA. They will forge an education pathway out of poverty. Like Madiba said, if the ANC does to you what the apartheid did to you, then you must do to the ANC what you did to the apartheid government. It is now time to end this oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite order, honorable members. Order. I now. Thank you. I now invite Honorable the Minister of Home Affairs.
Madam Speaker, Excellency President Ramaphosa, my colleagues in the executive, honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the speaker who was pranking here like a small chihuahua eating at the heels must be very careful because he belongs to a party that easily do black shading. He might be black shirt next week, so you must just prank very carefully. Mr. President, last year, in your State of the Nation address, you announced that the Department of Home Affairs will be hiring 10,000 unemployed graduates in the field of IT, record, and document management. Last week, you gave reports by making it known to the nation that the Department of Home Affairs has already appointed the first cohort of these 10,000. Mr. President, yes, we have divided the young ones into 3 cohorts. The first 2,000, the second 4,000, and the last 4,000. This first cohort has completed their training last week in Benoni and have already been dispatched to all provinces to start their important job, their first work in their life. These young people will be employed for a period of 3 years to transform these paper records into digital files. The advert for the second cohort of 4,000 is out already, and the closing period is in the next 2 weeks. All the 10,000 young people will be on the job by the end of April this year. I must state that the recruitment process unveiled young people with highly impressive qualifications and technical skills, like the 29-year-old Papedi Sibeng from Polokwane in Limpopo, who has a master's degree in information studies and was hence appointed as one of the managers, digitization project. I can assure Mr. President, this has got nothing to do with where the Minister of Home Affairs is coming from. It just happened. Your announcement, Mr. President, after your announcement, Mr. President, there are many people who were asking, what are these records all about? They are actually files of records of birth, marriage, death, IDs, passports, and other identification documents that are in our possession since 1895. Some of you in this house might regard this as a mundane project. His Excellency, Mr. President, some of these records have already helped some families to claim back their land because they were able to prove through the records who their ancestors were. Now, can you imagine if they were to fade away due to age or worse still, to perish in a fire or some such natural disaster. State South Africa has been digitizing these files for the past 7 years, but we're only able to complete 5 million per annum. Thanks for Treasury for availing 2.4 billion rand for the next 3 financial years for this project of national significance. Members of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs often get irritated when members of the public complain that they've been waiting for a very long time for an amendment or a rectification on their name or date of birth. Remember, when you change anything on your ID, on your date of birth, I mean to say, or even your name, you actually get a new ID altogether. You are a new person. Some of these people even resort to the courts, and on many occasions, the courts rule in their favor. Now, where is the delay? We actually spend many months because officials have to literally forage among these 350 million records to check the original details that a person seeks to amend. So this project is a significant milestone for us in Home Affairs and the citizens as a whole. Many people will relish not having to pay repeated visits to Home Affairs as they are doing. Mr. President, annually, we get about 80,000 people who want to amend their date of birth or the spelling or something on their surname. And you can imagine having to look for 80,000 records among 350 million. During our budget vote last year, Mr. President, we announced that we are going to do everything in our power to provide the public with multiple platforms to acquire identification and travel documents from Home Affairs, to avoid the long queues and its attendant hardships. One such a platform is to offer services in the main shopping malls of the country, where people do not have to queue, but come and do their shopping while waiting for their turn to be served. I'm happy to announce that systems and equipment have already been set up at Mainland Mall in Tshwane, and we're ready to roll in the first week of March. Yes, Mr. President, in 3 weeks' time, you may go to Mainland and experience waiting to be served while you are doing your shopping. And I suggest you take Mr. Steenhuisen with you. He's making a lot of noise here. He must go and see what delivery is. Please invite him when you go. Immediately after officiating at Mainland, we will go to Cresta Mall in Johannesburg, the Pavilion in eThekwini, and Tiger Valley here in Cape Town. We believe that all of those will be functional before the end of the coming financial year. That means this calendar year. Mr. President, we have been accused of acquiring very expensive space from rich mall owners at a very high cost to the state. I want to mention here that for the next 5 years, we are not going to pay a single cent for rental because this project is mutualism. We bring people to the mall to shop, and the mall gives us space and other convenience facilities. So we both gain. On the day that will be opening Mainland Mall, we will significantly expand the platform to acquire identification documents. We'll be receiving 20 brand new vehicles, mobile Home Affairs units. That means Home Affairs on wheels to travel the length and breadth of the country, giving people their identification documents. We have already put an order for another 100 because these 20 are ready. They are just waiting to be delivered. They are in Gqeberha as I'm speaking at Nissan. But we have already made an order for another 100. In essence, it means we are increasing our mobile vehicles by 120%. And we'll do so every year, at least for the next 5 years. They are all fitted with inbuilt generators to deal with load shedding. Mr. President, we are on course and established the Border Management Authority. On the 14th of July last year, you are aware that we deployed 200 border guards. And we are are waiting for Treasury for another 400 border guards. We have been justifiably ridiculed by some dishonest and disinterested people that we are trying to isolate South Africa from the rest of the continent when we manage our borders. Surprisingly, at the same time, we are being ridiculed for porous borders. Mr. President, every country I know of in the world is interested to know what is going on at their borders, what is coming in and what is going out. So we are not about to apologize to anybody for deploying border guards to do what other nations of the world are doing. In the past festive season, from 7 December 2022 to January 2023, the border guard processed 4,037,415 cross-border movements without any hurdle. This time around, because the BMA exists, the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs did not have to go to the borders to do any oversight. The media who were hiding at Beit Bridge, waiting for a catastrophe to happen in the form of chaotic congestion, were phoning us grudgingly asking what went wrong, why there are no problems at the borders, instead of asking what is that which we have done right this time around. Yes, we have deployed border guards. They have confiscated just this December 2,236 kilograms of non-compliant regulated agricultural projects, 4,120 pairs of counterfeit shoes, 8 bars of copper, 13 vehicles. If we count from July, 42 vehicles which are about to leave the country, 11 containers of diesel of 20 liters each. These are some of the things that they've been able to do. And they've stopped 13,020 undocumented people who wanted to enter our country illegally.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable members, I will now suspend proceedings for 15 minutes break. Bells will be rung to alert members to the resumption of business. Business is now suspended. Thank you.
I can hear you. Viewers, as you can see, the proceedings have been suspended for 15 minutes. The Speaker of the National Assembly has indicated that in exactly 15 minutes, the bells will be rung to reconvene. Viewers, as you can see, members are making their way out of the City Hall right now, as the Speaker of the National Assembly has suspended the proceedings for 15 minutes to give members an opportunity to take a comfort break. And of course, after 15 minutes, the bells will be rung again, and then members will be able to get into the City Hall again, and of course, take their seats in order for the proceedings of the day to proceed. With that said, the first speaker, when the proceedings started at 1400 hours this afternoon, was the Chief Whip of the National Council of Provinces, Ndate Seyse Mohai, who opened up the debate, and it was ended with, of course, Ndate Aaron Motsoaledi, and he was the last person to speak. And then after that, we will, of course, continue with this joint debate to both houses. So now we are quickly going to go over. Let's take a look at this clip from the FF Plus in terms of, and this basically just outlines some of the issues that were raised by the FF Plus. Do stay tuned.
Honorable President, as far as Eskom is concerned, I first want to ask you, you're going to appoint a minister for electricity. How many caterers do you need to change the bulb? One to hold the ladder, one to get on the ladder, one to pass on the bulb, and if they put it in, there's no electricity. You own Minister for Energy and Mineral Resources said it's only going to be a project manager. Those words should say something to you, because that minister doesn't see the new minister as an equal, only a project manager. Honorable President, it is common knowledge that black economic empowerment and affirmative action is one of the main reasons for the problems in Eskom. Their own employment equity plan determines that in the next 3 years, Eskom must get rid of 500 white men technicians with technical skills. Honorable President, I've urged you many times from this podium, let us get rid of black economic empowerment and affirmative action, because it's nothing else than the smokescreen for corruption. And even the Zondo Commission found so. The people of South Africa, and specifically the white people, and I said it many times, wants to build South Africa. Honorable President, are you aware of the fact that Mr. Japie van Zyl, he studied at Stellenbosch. He was a member of the South African Navy. He's an engineer. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2020. But Japie van Zyl was the project manager for Perseverance on Mars. Are you aware of the fact that on the planet Mars, there is a mountain range named Japie van Zyl? That's acknowledgement for people from South Africa, irrespective of race. Honorable Chairperson, you said that we must take joint responsibility for Eskom. I want to put it very clearly. The Freedom Front Plus doesn't take responsibility for the crisis of Eskom. Yes, we have solutions. But Honorable President, and I will submit you with a 10-point plan of the Freedom Front Plus to solve the problem and the crisis. But the question is whether you're going to read it. Do you listen what opposition party leaders say to you? I don't experience that, unfortunately. So we do not take responsibility for the crisis. I also want to say, Honorable President, that you were put in charge in 2015 of the war room that was created by your predecessor. And a couple of things have been said, and I want to quote. On the 2nd of September 2015, you yourself said the following: in the next 18 months to 2 years, you will forget that the challenges we had with power, energy, and Eskom ever existed. Close quote. On the 3rd of April 2019, the Honorable Minister Pravin Gordhan said the following: Eskom aims to ensure that there will be no more load shedding from 3 April 2019. The same Honorable Gordhan said the other day, in fact, the 25th of January, on an online symposium with the University of Johannesburg, he said, "We are now in the mood to urgently solve the crisis as soon as possible." Close quote. In the mood? Honorable Chairperson, maybe the Honorable Minister must visit the people on the streets and determine their mood when there is load shedding. And I can assure you, he will be surprised, because he doesn't know what is load shedding, because no minister gets load shedding. And I think it is arrogant, to say we are now in the mood.
House Chairperson, South Africa requires miracles to eliminate unemployment. If the economy was to achieve steady growth of 3% per annum for the next 14 years, which is nearly double the projections, the unemployment rate would be reduced to about 25%, but 8 million South Africans would still be without a job. No number of well-intended job creation schemes, entrepreneurial training programs, red tape reduction projects will alter these numbers. In the absence of miracles, the President's words, extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures, simply do apply. Mr. President, we cannot maintain such a high number of unemployed people in the absence of decisive mitigation measures to ensure people do not starve. We have no choice but to adopt an expanded cash transfer system as part of a comprehensive social security system overhaul, as a means of supporting and ensuring social and economic justice, constitutional rights, and stability. The announcement that the 350 Rand per month COVID grant will be continued is rather less than we had hoped for this year's SONA. Given the magnitude of the crisis of unemployment and the destitution and hunger of millions of people, this year's speech was the perfect opportunity to unequivocally commit the state to implementing a basic income grant. A comprehensive social security system can and must be implemented with the necessary political will. Inefficient government perks and programs must be closed. The number of government departments should be reduced. At a provincial level, there's an urgent need to reconsider spending that occurs through premiers' offices, and regressive or ineffective tax expenditure must be shut down or fixed. If we did these things, Mr. President, we could prioritize the needs of the neediest by implementing a basic income grant. Mr. President, the greatest barrier to entrepreneurship is not training or red tape, it is access to finance. If the World Bank is correct, we can halve our unemployment rate if we achieve the same level of entrepreneurship as our peer countries. We therefore support your view that growth and the creation of jobs in our economy will be driven by medium and small enterprises, cooperatives, and informal traders or businesses. But we must invest far more substantially in ensuring access to finance. The plan to provide 1.4 billion Rand in financing to over 90,000 entrepreneurs and the commitment to establish a 10 billion Rand SMME growth fund are good plans. But the fact is that if this finance is to be administered by the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, then that rings alarm bells. It was SEFA that implemented the President's Spaza Shop support program during COVID. SEFA implemented a complicated system that eventually paid out a minuscule 7,000 Rand to a small but unknown number of Spaza shops and general dealers. Mr. President, we urge your government to ensure that access to finance means exactly that, and that viable projects don't die in long queues and unprepared SEFA offices. We agree, Mr. President, that we must stay on the path outlined by the National Energy Action Plan, no matter how difficult this is in the short term, to end load shedding and in parallel implement a just transition to renewable energy. But the country deserved a clear timeline and an explanation for the slippage that has already crept into the implementation of that plan. Last July, the President announced that generation capacity to be procured through bid window 6 would be doubled from 2,600 megawatts to 5,200 megawatts. But the list of preferred bidders that were announced on the 8th of December only provide a contracted capacity of 860 megawatts. Also, Mr. President, it is not clear how a tax incentive will enable a large-scale rollout of rooftop solar panels. This sounds like a scheme that would work only for the rich. We propose, Mr. President, that your government pursues the PACE, Property-Assessed Clean Energy Funding Model, which links financing of expensive solar energy systems to property ownership, and where repayment is made through property owners' rates, municipal rates accounts over a 20-year period. This will widely extend the financial ability of property owners to join the rooftop revolution.
Mr. Herron.
Finally, Mr. President, we believe that you are wrong to chase the DA down the proposed rabbit hole of an electricity state of disaster. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2023 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the State of the Nation address debate live across Parliament's platforms. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za or follow us on our social media accounts at Parliament of RSA. Parliament for following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Viewers, welcome back. If you're just joining us, you are still watching Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. As indicated a few minutes earlier, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mayor Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula, has suspended the proceedings of the House for just about 15 minutes to give members a comfort break, and members are actually just about to make their way back into the City Hall in order for the proceedings of the day or the business of the day to continue. And that is, of course, day 2 of the joint debate for the 2023 State of the Nation address. This is, of course, an opportunity for members of Parliament to reflect on the commitments that have been made by the State President in his address. And of course, the key issues that members are responding to broadly is not only the 7 priorities as announced in the State President's 2019 State of the Nation address, and of course they are also reflecting on where we are right now as a country, the current state of the economy, high levels of unemployment, and of course whether the State President's response or program of action for the year ahead actually is speaking to the development landscape and the challenges that ordinary South Africans are facing. And just to recap in terms of what those key issues are that the President has announced in his State of the Nation address, number 1, at the top of that list is, of course, the impact of load shedding and the far-reaching impact of load shedding on the economy and on all aspects of life. The President, of course, has given quite a number made a number of commitments with regards to how this challenge, this energy crisis will be addressed. And key amongst those commitments and solutions that have been put forth by the President is that national state of disaster that has been declared. And of course, that second contentious commitment of appointing a new Minister of Electricity. Number 2 on that list of priorities is reducing the high levels of unemployment in the country. We know that by 2018, we had already been South Africa, the economy had already been in a technical recession. And by the time 2020 and the pandemic hit, in fact, our country was hard hit, not only because of the pandemic and the far-reaching impact of the COVID pandemic, but of course, the rest of the global community also suffered a major blow. But for a developing country such as South Africa, obviously that was the impact was even harder with many losing their jobs. But of course, we will remember that the President did indicate that we seem to be recovering as a country because just over 1 million jobs have been created in the last 2 quarters of the year. Another key issue that the President committed to addressing is, of course, the high levels of poverty and the rising cost of living. And of course, this is quite critical when we have less companies that are functional, when the economy is not growing, when there are less SMMEs, emerging SMMEs. It means that less people are working, and even with the businesses that were there before, with those businesses that have closed down, it means much more people are actually dependent on the state for their livelihood and to feed their families and to survive. And we know, of course, that the President did indicate that the social relief of distress grant will, of course, be continued in order to, provide that cushion, that much needed cushion for those who are unable to look after themselves. And number 4 on that priority list is in terms of what has been committed to by the President is, of course, the issue of crime and corruption. The President did, of course, say that in terms of crime, there is a plan in place to actually employ more police and to deploy more police, especially around the hotspots where we know there are high levels of crime and especially, violent crimes. And we know obviously the issue of gender-based violence and femicide falls squarely within that space of crime and high levels of crime and crimes that are committed against women and children. There is also, of course, the issue of corruption as well. We know that through the Zondo Commission, that report has now been given to Parliament. There are processes underway to ensure that the recommendations or the findings of the Zondo Commission are actually being implemented. And key amongst those, if we're talking about the role of Parliament, we have to remember that the Zondo Commission also in terms of one of its key findings, and that is in relation to the role, the constitutional mandate of Parliament, is that Parliament must actually go back and strengthen the manner in which it interprets its oversight role, its oversight mandate, and of course, how does Parliament then ensure that when it comes to crime and corruption, does it have the requisite, the necessary systems in place to ensure that in a proactive manner, issues of crime and corruption can be picked up and through oversight and accountability to the appropriate oversight and accountability mechanisms to address those issues more proactively and to reduce levels of, corrosive levels of crime, especially corruption. But of course, right now, members are coming back into the hall. They're making their way back, and the presiding officer has taken his seat, and the proceedings are about to be reconvened.
We will now proceed. And our first speaker is the Honorable Premier of the Northwest.
Thank you, Chairperson. His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Cabinet Ministers, Deputy President of the governing party, Honorable Paul Mashatile, the members of parliament, leaders of political parties represented here today, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In his State of the Nation address, the Honorable President stated that the people of South Africa want action, they want solutions, they want implementation, and they want government to work for the people. In responding to this call and what the people desire, our province has prioritized accelerated service delivery and job creation as key focus area for the next financial year. The foundation of such a program requires the building of capacity within government to allow departments and municipalities to discharge their responsibilities. And I want to speak about a real concrete example and take us away from hypothetical debates. When I try to illustrate that there's no truth in the statement that there has been lack of development in municipalities under the tenure of President Ramaphosa. So I want to take you to a concrete example. Ke batla go bua ka ko ke tswang teng. Ke tswa ko 1602 Mahura Street ko Vryburg. Ko gae go na le toilet e flashang, ha o press ya flasha. Ko gae go na le tepe e tswang metsi, ya o bula e tswang metsi. Ko gae go na le motlakase, ko gae go na le motlakase. Matlakala a tseiwang. Strata sa rona ga sa thariwa sna paving. Mara re tshwenyege. Di strata tse di kgolo tse di na le traffic ends. Bo Mosiapoa, bo Nelson Mandela, bo Oliver Tambo, di tharilwe. Rona tene ya rona e tla. Re ikopela ko batho ba Mahura Street re ha tene ya rona ya tla. The municipality is busy repairing other streets. This is happening in Coleridge in the Colored Township. I was called now the day by Mr. Kasim from Kismet Park, which is an Indian residential area. And he said to me, Premier, this road leading to our residential area is full of potholes. After 3 days, he sent me a WhatsApp and he said to me, I'm so happy they are repairing the road. 3 days. En ek is ook bewus. Ek is ook bewus want ek bly daar so. Ek praat nie nou teorie nie. Ek bly daarso. Ek is bewus dat daai straat, Voortrekkerstraat in Vryburg word ook herstel. En ek weet Dr. Van Zyl bly daarso en hy's baie bly dat hierdie pad nou reggemaak word. Dr. Van Zyl was Dr. van Mamroet Mompati. I'm also pleased to notice that the cemeteries have been fenced. You know, for me, that restores dignity to people who are buried there. You know, last time I received a report that there was no water at Joe Morolong Hospital, and I was a little bit disturbed. But in no time, MEC Sambata gave me a report that they have managed to fill the reservoir. But maybe that is a short-term solution. We went further to say to me, we have discovered a borehole not very far from the hospital, and we are going to use that water to provide water to the hospital on a more sustainable basis. Mr. President, we are happy that you told us that we must address challenges of the present, and we are doing exactly that. I will, in fact, Mr. President, you are invited to come to Vryburg in April to officially open a state-of-the-art school there. But during that visit in Vryburg, where I come from, I'm not talking theory, but you must couple that visit with the opening of a new mall there. This mall came into being through the efforts of the municipality. And this mall is going to give employment to many people in that area. I want to turn my attention to the Sobota. I see many people here are in love with the Sobota. When we realized that there were problems in the Sobota, we formed a task team and we worked with business and we succeeded. We succeeded with business to tar roads there, not using money from the municipality, but using contributions from business. We tarred roads there. They even repaired faulty traffic lights. I always thought that I have friends in the EFF. Now they are making noise. I always thought that I have friends in the EFF. Well, why are they doing this to me? Now, many people speak liberally about 139 not working, and we listen to them. And some gentleman was here and he said that there were over 2 years. I think that is hyperbole. We accept that. There can't be truth in that statement. But we intervene, and can you tell us whether you still see 2 mayors? Can you tell us that? Because we intervene and we are fixing that municipality. And we are working very closely now with the DBSA and the university to build the capacity there. We are concerned more about solutions because we realize officials here do not have capacity, particularly project preparation and we are responding to the problem. You know, there are people who sometimes proclaim that there are no roads in the Northwest. They proclaim that there are no roads. But I'm the one who uses those roads more than any other person. I travel from Mafike to Rustenburg. I travel from Mafike to Klerksdorp. I travel from Mafike to Schweizer. I travel from Mafike to Madibo. And I don't hit any pothole. So, well, it is true that some of our roads are not in good condition. Inasmuch as it is true that some roads are in excellent condition. So that's the picture. That's the true picture. boere dikwels kla oor daai pad tussen Wolmaranstad en Schweizernekke. En hulle het kla ook oor daai pad tussen Koster en Lichtenberg. En hulle het kla oor daai ander pad tussen Ottosdal en Delareyville. En luister hierso, luister 'n bietjie. Ons het daar gegaan, daai pad tussen Ottosdal en Delareyville. Die groot gedeelte van daai pad is klaar gemaak. Ek was daar, ek het met my eie 2 oë gesien. En die pad is uitstekend. Ek is bly daaroor.
Honorable Premier, just a second. Honorable member, your hand is up. On what point are you raising?
Chairperson, I'm rising on a point of order. Yes, members are allowed to hail, but now they are drowning the speaker and you are not protecting the speaker. Please protect the speaker, Honorable Chairperson. They are drowning the speaker. The speaker is not breathing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure there's no harm in a little bit of heckling, but to drown a speaker is another question altogether. Please proceed, Premier. Please proceed, Premier.
There's this story that people like, the Clover story. The Clover story. Now, when we were told that Clover was disinvesting from Lichtenberg, we were very worried. We formed a group with some Africans to look at the problem.
Honorable members.
And we did not understand what the cause of the problem was. Until the matter was taken to court. Until the matter was taken to court. And in court papers, Clover stated that the company has been operating in a difficult environment. Hence the need to embark on a restructuring. And they ended up relocating from Lichtenberg, Milnerton, City Deep, Heilbronn, Frankfurt, and other places. And I had the opportunity to speak to one of the farmers there. And I said to Fumei, Moni worry or Clovani. Their business model is not working here. We want to take over their premises. We want to operate there. And we as South Africans are aware that we don't have electricity. But we are prepared to buy a generator. We know to ensure that we operate. This is what we want to hear from South Africans. You know, I really never thought about a fight with the EFF. I really never, you have been well behaved for the whole day. How can a person like me provoke you to howl like this? Albert,
Order, honorable members. Order.
We have been interacting with business in the Northwest. We have interacted with the mines. And the person that initiated this interaction with the mines is Honorable Gwede Mantashe. And we met with PPM. And PPM, Pilanesberg Platinum Mines. And they said over a 5-year period, they are investing 9 billion. And in that investment, they are going to create 3,300 jobs. And, you know, the DA, if you go on like this, I'll respond to you. The EFF, I won't, but you, I want you.
All the honorable members, can we just ensure that the speaker is able to continue? Can we have a bit of order?
We met with several minds, Samanco and the others, and they are all saying we are expanding. They are all saying we like your support. We met with the tourism sector. They said repair these roads. We are meeting regularly with organized agriculture. Pradnet was daar aan die toy. Pradnet met Boeta die toy en Node Pinar. Ons ontmoet gereeld. Ons praat van landbou in die provincie. Hoe om dit te gebruik om werk te skep en ons maak vooruitgang. Some people say that there's nothing happening in the country. I want to tell you, there's a company there called Supreme Chicken. Supreme Chicken invited me and they said, we want to expand. They have operations all over our province. And they said, we want to invest and expand. And you know, it's not only them. Many involved in the chicken industry are expanding. As a result, I think we are becoming the #1 province in the production of chicken. I'm just telling you a few stories. Mara, I'm gezien die DA belangstel in my. Ek wonder hoekom stel hulle belang in my. I just want to say this. You are happy, Honorable Eerste Hazen. You never lived in apartheid South Africa. You know, we experienced a situation where our names could be changed willy-nilly. If you're Mtimkulu, the next day, you know, you become Grootboom. And so since you are Steenhuisen, maybe you can become Brick House. And we say Brick House. And you must note that when they do that, they continue to bastardize your name. You may not even end with Brick House. You may become Brick something. But that doesn't worry me what brick you'll become, Brick something. What worries me is your statement wherein you said people will vote for you. I don't know, you only think of black people when you want their votes. You don't think about them as leaders. And in that, we think you are being patronizing and paternalistic. And we really do not like that. But I want to advise you, go and read a book by Amika Cabral, Unity and Struggle. In that book, he defines what people means. And when you read it carefully, you'll realize that you do not qualify to be called people. In fact, your party represents the antithesis of people. Laat ek nou 'n bietjie praat met Groenewald en die toy. Hou op, de Groenewald. Hou op, Groenewald. Moenie hier kom en na vrou vertel BE en affirmative action is verkeerd.
Yes, as you move towards closing, Premier, the time, yeah. Okay. Now, thank you very much, Premier. We will now proceed to Honorable Nana.
The less said about the Premier of Northwest, the better. It explains why Northwest is in such a mess. Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, ngale njikalanga nam mandizeke mzekweni ndizibulisele kuni noshumi. I'm about to say something the majority of this house would not want to hear. But unfortunately, it is the truth, and I'll speak truth to power. Apartheid was bad. Apartheid was very bad. Of us with physical and emotional wounds, and scars are still showing. But not everything was bad about apartheid. The democratic government was bequeathed with SOEs, with, amongst other things, well-established and functioning SOEs. Guess what you, the ANC, did?
Honorable Nana, just a minute. The man at the back. No, at the back. At the back. On what point are you raising, honorable member?
Yo. Yeah, this is very worrisome. Apartheid is a crime against humanity. Chair, can you rule this man, this honorable member, to order? There's no way that he can say apartheid was never bad on all centers. Apartheid was bad on every life of South Africans.
Thank you very much.
Including the same white people.
Thank you very much.
Under apartheid, they were very bad.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable member, but that's not the point of order. Please proceed, Nana.
Please look at my time, Honorable Chair. The democratic government was bequeathed with, amongst other things, well-established and functioning SOEs. Guess what you did, the ANC, with Eskom, SAA, SA Express, Petro SA, PRASA, South African Post Office, SABC, Transnet, to mention just a few. The corrupt ANC government systematically obliterated each of these entities, some to extinction, whilst others are a shadow of their former glory, costing a taxpayer a fortune. The failed ANC government gives credence to unfounded stereotypes that blacks cannot govern and South Africa will be just another failed typical African state. Many South Africans go to bed without food. Others are losing their jobs on a daily basis. Businesses are closing due to load shedding. Is it not shameful the Minister of Arts and Culture, despite all of this, wanted to spend 22 million rands on a 100-meter tall flag? To add insult to injury, South African tourism wants to sponsor Tottenham Hotspur by a nearly 1 billion rands. These are nothing else but a waste of taxpayers' money by a government that is out of touch with the hardships of its citizens. Mr. President, your cadres in the Eastern Cape municipalities have taken rot, maladministration, and corruption to new heights. Public infrastructure is in many municipalities either near or completely collapsed, and Inokum Gijima is leading the pack. Shortly before 2021 local government elections, in an attempt by the ANC to get votes, a pomp ribbon cutting event for the official opening of a 15 million rand stadium in Komani badly backfired. It later transpired that, in fact, this goat track called Lessiton Sports Field was costing about 22 million. In February 2022, the cash-strapped Inokum Gijima was at it again. This time, they had awarded a tender to construct a mere 6.7 kilometers of road at a cost of 97 million. Industry experts will tell you the cost of constructing 1 kilometer of road will cost you just over R1 million. These days, after shaking an ANC member's hand, you better count your fingers just in case one, if not all of your fingers are missing. Honorable members, let me be clear. The collapse of infrastructure in our municipalities is as a result of a corruption perpetuated with impunity by the ANC. However, it is not all doom and gloom in the Eastern Cape. As the saying goes, every dark cloud has a silver lining. A democratic alliance government in Kocha municipality is that silver lining. Having inherited a bankrupt municipality from a corrupt ANC administration in 2016, the late executive mayor, Elsa van Lingen, together with her team, rolled up their sleeves, got stuck into to clean up an ANC mess. Whilst the country is suffering from load shedding with no plans in place from the governing party except the Minister of Electricity, the executive mayor of Kocha municipality, Horatio Hendricks, and his team is aiming to be less dependent from Eskom. Our government will be undertaking a 6-month feasibility study to determine viability of alternative means of renewable energy and power generation by independent power producers. This study will be completed by the end of June. Kocha has been hardest hit, honorable members.
As you move towards closing,
Kocha has been hardest hit, honorable members, by the longest drought, and they are working all out to provide clean and drinkable water for their citizens. Honorable President,
your time is up.
Start clearing up your desk in union buildings. Your time is up. John Bulligate wants the keys. Siyabangena.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to Honorable PM Hadebe.
I think it was Steve Biko who once said the most important weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Honorable Nana is the living example of that. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Mr. President, all protocol observed. It is one of those greatest fantastic moments in life for me to be standing parallel to you, perpendicular to the ground and vertical opposite to the force of gravity. Mr. President, one of our outstanding freedom fighter, Walter Sisulu, famously said, "It is the law of life that problems arise when conditions are there for their solutions." Mr. President, last week when you delivered the State of the Nation address, you highlighted monumental achievement of this government in meeting the needs of our people. Your address, Mr. President, was an appeal for us to remain hopeful as we navigate difficult challenges we face as a nation. You called on us to reignite the resilient spirit of our forefathers, our fallen martyrs who against all odds fought fearlessly and defeated apartheid in order for us to attain freedom in our lifetime. You gave us hope against despair, Mr. President, a sense of purpose against disillusionment, and courage in the face of adversity. Indeed, Mr. President, it was a sounding call to come together, stand united as we build our country in the hope for a better tomorrow. Mr. President, you demonstrated acute awareness of challenges we face. You inspired the nation when you said, and I quote, "Whatever difficulties of the moment, whatever crises we face, we will rise to meet them together, and together we will overcome them," close quote. Yes, Mr. President, united we stand and divided we shall fall, like the red overalls and Teletubbies on Thursday. When they tried to climb the stage, they fell because they were divided. Madam Speaker, one of the critical challenges highlighted by the President was the question of corruption. On this note, President, you presented concrete steps, progress, and gains that have been made in reinvigorating our law enforcement agencies to intensify criminal prosecution on state capture networks. recovery of stolen funds, and the seizure of ill-gotten assets. It is on this basis, honorable members, that I rise like a phoenix on behalf of the African National Congress to commend the good work done under the stewardship and the firm hands of you, Mr. President. Now, yesterday, honorable members, there was one DA honorable member, his initials are LA. He said, Mr. President, not even one person believes that you are serious about fighting crime. Close quote. What a joke. Mr. President, fellow South African, today I stand before you to demonstrate decisive action from the executive and our law enforcement agencies in addressing corruption and maladministration. This administration, led by President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, has placed combating corruption as a critical priority, and the parliament, in the capable hands of DJ Pemza, aka Waichukucha, has also played its oversight role in ensuring accountability and action is taken in the fight against corruption. Our law enforcement agencies are fully equipped. They operate independently without fear and favor. Now, fellow South Africans, here are the facts, but not fictions. Amongst other critical successes in the fight against corruption, the NPA Investigative Directorate has finalized a long overdue but extensive settlement process with a Swedish-Swiss multi-corporate business, ABB. And this company has paid back 1.5 billion punitive reparation to South Africa. This payment is part of the NPA funding about criminal probe into systematic corruption at Eskom, and the company has been blacklisted. Facts, not fiction. NPA Investigative Directorate, only established in 2019, has taken 187 accused persons to court in 32 state capture and corruption cases. Facts, not fiction. Over 7 billion has been returned to the state from the state capture cases, including Mackenzie and Company, 1 billion settlement related to Eskom. To date, fellow South Africans, 12.5 billion of funds and assets have been frozen. Now, this is a decisive action, and we should commend and welcome the leadership of Mr. President and our law enforcement agencies. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, indeed, this administration under the ANC has taken firm stand against corruption, malfeasance in the interest of our people and our revolutionary advance through a truly ethical, democratic development state. Fellow South Africans, only on the 1st of April 2020 to 31st of December 2022, under the capable hands of Advocate Mutibi, the SIU Special Investigating Unit has referred 384 companies to be blacklisted. Now, honorable members, blacklisting is one of the important steps to implement consequence management, and it ensures that implicated companies are restricted from doing business with the state. 384 companies are now prohibited from doing business with the state. Still on SIU, 110 number of motivation for proclamation have been submitted to the President via the Department of Justice. Out of 110, 69 have been gazetted. 41 are currently being processed by the Department of Justice. Now, as a result of that, just one financial year, 2021-2022, 6.2 billion rand value of potential losses have been prevented. Facts, 5.5 billion rand value of contract and administrative decision have been set aside and deemed invalid. Now, this is the sterling work done by Advocate Mutibi and his excellent team in the SIU. Honorable members, fellow South Africans, numbers don't lie. DA and Mr. John Wick, Honorable Steenhuisen, you are entitled to your own opinion, but surely you are not entitled to your own facts. Now, allow me, DJ Pemza, to take a swipe and deviate kancane nje and deal with the myth of the DA. That way they govern better. By the way, I am a MP deployed in Kailicha. Kailicha is my PCO. Let's deal with the public transport. City of Cape Town is a tale of two cities, a city for the rich and a city for the poor. In the city of Cape Town,
As we move towards closing, honorable member.
let me, let me take this opportunity as I conclude. Let me take this opportunity and thank you, Madam Speaker, for your leadership last week. Bahlangane nembila ijuda ihola emhlophe phambili ama-overall agcwala umoya bezwa ngathi bayasha kanti vele sebashile. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to Honorable N. Hadebe.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Your Excellency, the President, honorable members. Mr. President, considering that you engaged with us on the state of our nation, let us respond with a discussion on the experiences of the people of our nation. In your address, you communicated that the Department of Water truly has deep knowledge of what is needed. However, the lived experiences of South Africans highlight the department's shallow understanding of the water crisis. During the 2022 NCOP taking parliament to the people in KwaZulu-Natal, where you were also present, Mr. President, members of the public reported that in the Ugu district, it can take 6 weeks between water deliveries. They claimed that Izingolweni Ward 33 has been without water for 10 years. However, the day before the last municipal elections, water came gushing out of the community tap in this community. This lasted until 10 a.m. the following day and then ran dry, which raises the question if there really is no water or just indifferences from the ANC-led government to provide the services to the people. The Minister of Water and Sanitation visited Ugu in both July and November, yet nothing has changed. Water is already a crisis in South Africa, and we cannot ignore the warning signs following the same route as the energy crisis. Immediate intervention is needed if we want to avoid another declaration of disaster in years to come. At municipal level, we are given the perfect example of the government's lacking ability to deliver services even under conditions favorable for rectification. When municipalities are placed under administration under Section 139, it means that they are desperately in need of help from those who have the skills to execute an emergency plan so that service delivery becomes the main focus. Unfortunately, we are seeing ineffective administrators merely shift from one failing municipality to another. These administrators have little oversight, and there is lack of clarity on the requirements for consideration of the administrator role and the performance tools used to monitor them. A few years ago, you signed performance agreement with your cabinet in what seemed like a promise to afford South Africa the accountability and service delivery that we deserve. Regrettably, the terms of the agreement you have entered into have found to have no bite when it comes to ensuring that our cabinet is free from corruption and is orientated towards service delivery objectives. As the respective ministers at the 2022 NCOP week stood up to the podium to address the plight of the people, which highlighted the true state of the nation, they were unable to empathize and engage beyond their prepared notes. This emphasizes the disconnect between our country's people and her government. Mr. President, last week in an IFP statement, we mentioned that in your SONA 2022, you highlighted the role of entrepreneurs and small businesses and praised Mr. Thabo Makhubu,
As you
Mr.
move towards
Thando Makhubu,
closure.
the founder of an ice cream shop, the Soweto Creamery, whose business provides employment to 4 people. Fast forward to SONA 2023.
Your time is up.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next to speak is Honorable the Minister of Basic Education.
Chair, The Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Matamela Ramaphosa, the Honorable Speaker and Deputy Speaker. The Chairperson and Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, leaders of different political parties, whips, colleagues, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Chair, I stand here to address you in full support of the State of the Nation address, which was delivered by our President. But allow me, Speaker, to quote from the February 2021 publication of the Development Bank of South Africa, which succinctly summarizes the role of education in economic development. And he says, and I quote, "Education in every sense is one of the fundamental factors of development. No country can achieve sustainable economic development without substantial investment in human capital. Education enriches people's understanding of themselves and the world. It improves the quality of their lives. It leads to broad social benefits to individuals and society, and it raises people's productivity and creativity, promoting entrepreneurship, technological advances, and plays a crucial role in securing economic and social progress in improving incomes. Therefore, Chair, access to retention as well as inputs in the quality of equitable education are very critical determinants of strategic and structural development of the social, political, economic of every country. We are, Chair, as a ruling party, very proud and encouraged of the improvements we have made in schools. We, on the other hand, also concede that more needs to be done to contribute to skills, knowledge, competencies, and innovations. The ruling party, indeed, being greater cities, was correct in declaring education a societal matter, laying a solid foundation for an equitable, quality and efficient education system. It is thus very important to acknowledge the work that has been done by the business or partnerships that we have struck with business, with different provincial departments, with civil society, statutory bodies, learners, teachers, and parents. Speaker, I can say we can report that our basic education system is indeed a system on the rise, a fact that was recently recognized by the World Economic Forum in its expose of countries with the best education system in Africa. From amongst the all African countries, South Africa was rated the 4th top country with the best education in the continent. South Africa followed at number 4, it followed Mauritania, which has a population of 4.6 million. It was the 3rd best system. Tunisia, a population of 12.3 million. It was the 2nd best system. And Seychelles was the leading African country with a population of less than 100,000 people. So indeed, in terms of our size, we remain the best system in the continent. And at home now. So President, as we were congratulating the class of 2022 with a remarkable pass of over 80%, We really have to congratulate them and say, and other points I've raised before about the class of 2022. But I think we'll be making a mistake if andiphendule unodada ngisaqala nje. Uyazithethela umntana womuntu, uthetha into angayaziyo, uza ngamahemhem apha engathi ukuthi uwathathephi. And I will respond to some of the things that Nodata has said. Amongst others, before this, I want to remind the group here, or the house there, that this cohort that gave us 80 plus a pass rate, it's a group that was registered for grade 1 in 2011 out of 1.8 million, 1.1 million, 775,000 of them assessed education, which equates to about 65.7% of the pass rate, bearing in mind that currently we even have 500,000 learners in TVET colleges, and 400,000 of them went straight to TVET colleges coming from schools. And again, Chair, want to say also that this cohort is the second highest pass rate which was achieved since the introduction of the National Senior Certificate exams. ANC, you wonderful Cape Town, and I really don't want to compete with Cape Town because Cape Town kids also are our kids, and we're a national structure. We really appreciate all of them, but can say this very cohort has seen one of the biggest provinces in KZN, even Ibabuselemva or Spoon Khasef. So some of the facts that we want to raise will be contained in the report. The other point I also want to raise is this myth about 30%. And I want to say it slowly, Chair. I think I should briefly speak to the notion of the pass rate of 30%, which has been a subject of discussion for some time now. Let me start off by saying that the notion that you can pass your matric by just obtaining 30% is not true. Actually, the current system does not work on averages. If any candidate gets 30% aggregate, that candidate would have failed. I just want to remind members of the public about what are the requirements. For instance, to get a bachelor study, which is the majority of learners that passed in this 81%, you have to pass at least one subject at 40%, which is your home language, and doesn't mean that you have to get a 40%. 4 of your subject must be at 50%. To get a diploma, you have to get minimum of 40%, and 3 of your subjects must be at 40%. And the requirements are saying that you must at least pass 6, or 7 is average, 6 out of 7 subjects for you to pass. So as a story said, 30%, I think it's been raised. And I really want to also report, Chair, that the concerns that were raised on this matter, as early as 2014, President, I did establish a ministerial task team to evaluate the National Senior Certificate and address some of the concerns raised. And the team was led by Professor Brian Cornell, comprising distinguished and experienced educationists. Professor Harvey was there, Elspeth Campbell was there, Godwin Kosa was there, Professor Sharon Mutala was in the committee, and Professor Ranubu Vital was there. And they made a number of recommendations, amongst others saying we have to reduce the number of examinable subjects from 6 to 7. And we decided to keep it at 7 because we really felt that we still want very high quality passes. But the long and short of the report was saying, and I want to quote, it says, let me repeat. It recommended that the overall recommendation of this team, was that we should retain the past requirements of basic national certificate as is. Teto professor, Teto professor, Bachonjan, and so I've been given my Oh, Prof. Patent, that's why we're here. So, Speaker, I also wish to inform the South African Council that as the South African Council of Educators, we have also agreed on a comparative analysis of provincial performance using a basket of indicators, compromising the overall pass rate so that we not only rely on percentages, but look at a basket of indicators. And they really give us very interesting results, which show that there's no province in essence outside the percentages, which is better than any other. Those basket of indicators will indicate that KZN has the highest uptake of maths. It will indicate that Limpopo and Eastern Cape has the highest retention so that kids don't drop out earlier. And it will also show quite a number of indicators that are not found even in what you call your top provinces. And we'll be using that in the future. But we also wish to inform the public on the latest innovations we are currently piloting to better understand the learning trajectory from primary to secondary schools, a systemic evaluation study, which is currently underway.
As you
but
move
also
towards
want to-
closing,
Which one?
I'm saying time, Minister.
Which what happened?
Thank you very much, Minister. We now proceed to Honorable Chafta. Honorable SM Chafta.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. President Ramaphosa delivered his seventh State of the Nation address last week, Thursday. Let's do the count properly. In his first address in 2018, the president extensively recited Huma Segala's composition, Tumamina. In retrospect, we know that the meaning of the song has been distorted throughout the president's term. There is no hand shown to lend. There is, in fact, a regression of the past years and a complete lack of vision. In our view, it was ironic that the president left out Letambulu's iconic song that says, "Not yet Uhuru," back in 2018. The song depicts the real state of our nation. Mbulu reminds us in the song that, I quote, "Umhlaba wakithi usemi ndawonye, akukho mehluko kulelizwe." She goes on to say, "Ilifa lezithutha lidliwa ngabahlakaniphileyo," close quote. And as expected, she urges South Africans to break the shackles. This sentiment is unusually shared across the spectrum and among retired judges, academics, professionals, capital, trade unions, the working class, and the poor. They all insist that the crippling electricity supply, state corruption, and the dire living condition of our people must rally everyone into action to end the reign of this poor administration. This cohort believes that the current crisis constitutes a failed revolution. Honorable members, the president is fond of hope. The following timeline reflects this obsession. From 2019, appears not less than 15 times in his multiple SONA addresses to the nation. The president is perpetually hopeful. It is not hope, regrettably, that will address the widening Gini coefficient and income per capita divide in the country. Hope will not get us secure electricity. Hope will not reverse the impact of load shedding on businesses and farmers who continue to be the hardest hit by this calamity. We need decisive leadership, not hope. We know under President Mbeki that the interest of the country took precedence over those of ANC membership. President Mbeki would not have created an electricity department for fear of firing a dismal energy minister. Where is the Mbeki courage, the Mbeki foresight? Honorable members, it is this courage and foresight which saw a budget surplus of 0.6% of GDP back in 2007. Honorable Chair, the President must lead with a firm hand. The President has to realize that given that the South African coal is competitive on the world market, Eskom will be affected by increases in coal exports. To deal with this, the President must urgently proclaim coal as a strategic resource in order to disconnect the domestic market price from the export price. This will be a temporal measure pending the maintenance of Eskom's power plants. We are also of the view that demanding ministers to meet their KPIs instead of burdening the fiscus with continuous duplicate region appointments conjures up bold leadership. In closing, we wish to offer the following solutions to the President: to end unemployment among unemployed graduates. A graduate supply development fund must be created to provide seed funding for graduates who want to be entrepreneurs. So the President must be decisive, and we
As you close, Honorable
also
Member.
want to advise him to bolster the capacity of the state to industrialize and import substitution strategy must be established immediately. To end load shedding, electricity generation must be left to the private players, at least in the interim, while Eskom continues to maintain its old plants. I thank you.
The next speaker is going to be the Premier of Mpumalanga province.
Madam Speaker and Chairperson of the NCOP, His Excellency the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, our honorable members. Chairperson, I want to join the millions of South Africans who have congratulated you, Mr. President, for delivering a comprehensive address premised upon unity in purpose to steer this country back to the path of sustainable development in this year of decisive action to advance the people's interest and the renewal of our nation. It is fitting that the President delivered the proverbial umkhombandlela for government at all levels, here in the City Hall of Cape Town, where the father of our nation, Utata Nelson Mandela, gave his first public address as a free man 33 years ago. Mr. President, your presence on that seminal day and the faith Utata Mandela had in you primed you to lead this beautiful nation through the most challenging period since the advent of our democratic dispensation. Just like Utata Mandela, you are an emissary of hope for a better future of our people. Your address last week reminded all of us of a South Africa we want to build for the benefit of our future generations. A South Africa with equal opportunities. A South Africa that actively protects the dignity of her people. And a South Africa that brings to fruition the Freedom Charter's declaration that no government can claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. Our renowned constitution and the laws that stems from it have shown that no political democracy can survive if the majority of our people remain in poverty and without prospects for a better life. As such, our work in Mpumalanga is premised upon accelerating socio-economic transformation that will materially change the quality of life of our people. We welcome the bold and ambitious initiatives that shall be embarked upon to address the electricity shortfall. We agree with you that in a short term, priority should be given to fixing Eskom's coal-fired power stations in order to improve the existing supply. Secondly, and most importantly, from Pumalanga's perspective is the acceleration of procurement of new capacity from renewable gas and battery storage. We have taken heed of what the President emphasized in the SONA address when he stated that, I quote, "We will continue our just transition to a low carbon economy at a pace our country can afford, and in a manner that ensures energy security. Above all, our just transition will prioritize workers and communities in vulnerable industries to ensure that no one is left behind," close quote. As we are all aware, Mpumalanga is home to 12 coal power stations that produce 80% of electricity for the country. Most of these power stations are now reaching the end of their lifespan. One of them has already been decommissioned. We are also mindful that most of the economic activities that are polluting the environment, leading to high carbon emissions, are based in Mpumalanga. The impact of these carbon emissions is catastrophic, not only to the environment, but also to the overall health of our people, and therefore we need to double our effort to balance economic activities in our province with the agency to transition to a low carbon economy. In an effort to adequately balance the issue of high carbon emissions and the need to produce sustainable and green energy, we convened an energy summit last year. The summit brought together stakeholders from various sectors, such as government at all levels, our private sector, civil society formations, and organized labor. Along with an incredible inheritance of mineral resources, our province also has extremely rich solar and wind resources. As technology has evolved, it is now becoming possible to convert this wind and solar resources into sources of clean energy and value for the province. When we hosted the Energy Summit, we were aware that globally and in South Africa, there are increasingly urgent imperatives for low carbon development. The summit gave more drive and a sense of agency towards the implementation of the Mpumalanga Green Economy Development Plan. The plan propagates the proactive exploration of opportunities in the green economy for opportunity-led growth and to transition our economy to a labor-absorbing green focused province. At this summit, a new vehicle of partnership was launched. This is the Mpumalanga Green Energy Cluster Agency, which is comprised of representatives from academia, industry, and government. 10 months into its existence, I am pleased to report that the agency is already working with private sector players to remove barriers to the development of over 3 gigawatts of renewable energy projects in our province. Since the launch of this agency, I am happy to also announce the signing of over 78 billion rand worth of investment declarations by developers interested in investing in renewable energy projects in our province. This makes it even more urgent to remove barriers to economic development embedded in our bureaucratic processes as spheres of government to enable these investments. To this end, the Green Cluster Agency has produced market intelligence report for the green economy, identifying and quantifying opportunities for green jobs and investments in water, agriculture, and energy value chains. For us in Mpumalanga, just transition is not only limited to energy, but also to preserving our scarce water resources, pursuing agriculture in a climate-friendly manner, investing in skills, and promoting circular economic activities. All these practices are crucial in saving our planet. We will position our province to remain an energy hub that plays a leading role in the production of renewable energy and associated activities. We shall apply for the classification of the second SEZ in Secunda in support of the green energy and associated industries. Working in partnership with the Presidential Climate Commission, the Climate Investment Fund, and the World Bank, We are exploring plans to diversify our local economies to reduce dependency on coal, reskilling and upskilling the most vulnerable in the labor force, and supporting small businesses and cooperatives in local communities to access emerging opportunities in green economic sector. Once again, we remain thankful to you, Mr. President, for raising the matter of climate change and the just transition in a manner that takes into account the importance of concrete actions for mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable economic development pathways. Chairperson, the hard lockdown has had an adverse impact on employment in our province, especially amongst women, young people, and people with disabilities. To contextualize and put this into perspective, our unemployment rate was at around 35.1%. Worryingly, the unemployment rate amongst young people between the age of 15 and 34 years is around 46.5%. In order to decisively address this problem, we have developed the Mpumalanga Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan. This plan is an important vehicle to accelerate the implementation of key catalytic projects, which will not only stimulate growth, but shall also be highly labor intensive, with a key focus on young people, women, and people with disabilities. Through this plan, we will be rolling out high-impact green economy initiatives and industrialization through localization, employment stimulus initiative, tourism, agriculture programs. An important pillar of the MERRP is the strategic positioning of our province as a tourism destination of choice. Our province is endowed with tourist attractions that encompass scenic beauty, wildlife, and diverse heritage. We're in a process of augmenting our natural attractions with artificial and adventurous sites. One of the key sites whose construction will commence in March this year is the God's Window Skywalk, which is a triple P project aimed at attracting between 45 to 60,000 tourists along the Panorama Tourism Road. The project is planned to be complete and operation in March 2025. Another triple P project is the development of a cable car linking Three Rondavels View Site and Swatini Dam. In the Barberton Makonjwa Mountain Heritage Site, we will be building an education center, geosites, and geotrails in order to make the site appealing to academic tourists interested in anthropology. All these developments are aimed at increasing tourist arrivals, both domestically and internationally. Chairperson, in order to address the scourge of youth unemployment and the acceleration of youth participation in the mainstream economy, we came up with an initiative to support youth-owned enterprises called the Premier's Youth Development Fund, which has to date funded 97 entrepreneurs to the tune of 140 million in various sectors of the economy. The impact of the Premier's Youth Development Fund has been enormous and has resulted in the creation of sustainable employment opportunities for young people, women, and people with disabilities. Chairperson, the ANC-led government is driven by the moral duty to preserve the dignity of the people of our beautiful country. In our province, a large majority of our people now have access to water, not negating the fact that some of our communities are still accessing water through water tankers and communal standpipes. In order to address these challenges, we are in a process of rolling out the massive Loskop Dam Regional Bulk Augmentation Project, which will benefit the people of both Tembisile-Hani and Dr. J.S. Moroka local municipalities. Secondly, the construction of a dam in the city of Mbombela will further enhance and guarantee reliable bulk provision for our communities. Feasibility studies are currently underway, and indications are such that the dam construction shall be completed by 2027. Our consistent implementation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, as guided by the strategic intervention announced by you, Mr. President, is gradually paying off. The implementation of the district development model is also beginning to show positive results. Since its inception in 2021, all three spheres of government have been working closely together, especially on high-impact catalytic projects yielding better synergies, economies of scale, and stronger intergovernmental relations. Our district municipalities are now central in the implementation of service delivery programs within their respective districts. Projects such as Nkomazi SEZ, God's Window Skywalk, Nkosi City, Steve Tshwete Hotel and Convention Center, Loskop, to name just a few, which are projects that have attracted billions of rands of investments. Chairperson, we also want to applaud the security cluster for having worked swiftly with other sectors of law enforcement in government to bring stability in Mkondo municipality. For a long period of time, the people of Mkondo have been living in fear and terror of the rolling brazen shooting that have been going on in the area. We also welcome the recent decision by the Minister of Police to establish a dedicated investigative unit to investigate 19 politically related matters that have blighted our province for the past 15 years. We want to urge both the Minister of Police and Justice to ensure that justice is indeed served. Our province not only managed to arrest the decline that had commenced with the 0.3% reduction in the overall pass rate in the metric class of 2021. We managed to record a 3.2% increase in our overall pass rate to 76.4% for the metric class of 2022. This was attributable to various interventions we have embarked upon to ensure that teaching and learning proceeds without hindrances. For the past 2 years, we have invested significantly in e-learning by procuring 64,000 tablets preloaded with data, textbooks, study guides, literature, and past question papers with a specific focus on matriculants. The tablets also allow students.
As you move towards closing.
Okay. The tablets also allowed the students and teachers to establish support chat groups and be able to work beyond the four walls of the classrooms. President, once again, we want to appreciate the sterling work that we have done last week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Madisha is not here. Oh, he's here. Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, when you became president of our country, I became very happy. That because you acknowledged the terrible mistakes made by your organization and those who came before you. You promised South Africans a new dawn. You said with your new dawn, you would address problems of poverty, unemployment, corruption, state capture, inequality, absence of skills development, and many more that South Africans faced. But after having listened to you for 2 hours a few days ago, as you delivered your SONA, I ashamedly accepted that your new dawn is in fact a new darkness, permanent darkness for South Africans. South Africans received a nothing from your new dawn. They are hungry and unsafe. We are at the moment in the top 5 positions when you look at the countries of the world who are extremely poor. Now, on the state of disaster, you have declared it is a very serious decision. We are not faced with an earthquake. If that was the case, a state of disaster would be the first compulsion. You know, Mr. President, the first why we are faced with this problem. The present situation is the continuation, President, of what happened in 2008 and 2014. The presidency, I'm referring to yourself, and Mr. Zuma was informed about the causes of load shedding by the SIU, which had been instructed to investigate. SIU reports indicated that key causes were: one, corruption. ESCOM employees made deals with coal suppliers and got kickbacks. So the problems were self-created. Number two, deals with coal suppliers were made without any proper tender processes. Some tenders were given to coal companies. Those tenders lasted for more than 10 years. As you know, sir, those tenders raised ESCOM's debt to more than 1.4 trillion rand. Even Deloitte and Touche auditors and another international company called Dentons gave you, Mr. President, reports that proved dirty tenders given by ESCOM employees to diesel companies which were not even known in the diesel industry. Brokers were used and they gave employees kickbacks. And I'm talking here about millions of rands. South Africa has coal, but quality coal is exported to Germany, China, and other countries. We need that quality coal for electricity. We do not need a minister for all this. We're saying that you must employ engineers so that they can deal with this thing. What must be done to solve these problems? Number one, you must revisit fuel, including diesel duty levies. You must deal with corruption in ESCOM itself. You must assess wind and solar systems so that help can emerge. Improve age average of assets, given that most of them are very old. Just forget about saying you increase and increase and increase your cabinet. Some of them, like I said on very many occasions, we do not even know them. They are there just to take money and do whatever they want to do, and not to take that to the people of South Africa. I therefore want to say that Sorimren, you have failed again.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to the Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the NCOP. Also, my greetings to the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, His Excellency, the President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa, our executive colleagues, ministers and deputy ministers, premiers, honorable members, distinguished guests, Tobel. I appreciate this opportunity. Let me thank my Chief Whip for the opportunity to participate in this very important State of the Nation debate based on the address of the President on the evening of the 9th of February. I think the less said about my predecessor on this platform, because I think firstly, we shouldn't blame him. First of all, he needs to sort out who is the leader of their party. Once that is sorted out, I'm sure he can be able to advise us on any matter. Let's start there first. Mr. President, a year ago when you delivered the State of the Nation address, we're still in the grip of the high levels of the COVID-19 pandemic, having just been going through the fourth wave driven by the Omicron variant. A few months before that, our country and the SADC neighbors had been isolated from the world through travel bans. Today, all this, I think, to very many honorable members here who are able to cast a lot of aspersions, it looks like this happened easier. It looks like it never happened in their lives. President, you made a commitment at that time that we would end the state of disaster and lift all the restrictions when the situation was right. And at that stage as well, the doubting Thomases did not believe you. Now it sounds like deja vu that indeed we went on as you promised to deliver. Before the end of April last year, we had already lifted the state of disaster, and by the 22nd of June, we had lifted all the restrictions in relation to the pandemic. Interestingly, just yesterday, the government was in court led by the Minister of COGTA with one of the organizations which opposed the state of disaster. But now the same organization is in court with us because it is claiming that it was illegal to terminate the state of disaster. So when Honorable Mantashe spoke about people who speak from both sides of the mouth, I'm sure this particular organization must be somehow linked to some of honorable members on this side who speak from both sides of their mouths. On the one extreme, as we're looking after the health of the country, as we went through Memorial Hospital. May their souls rest in eternal peace. When we see serious flare-ups of the COVID in some of the countries abroad, like China, Taiwan, and others, this becomes a reminder that indeed it's not all over. But here at home, through the leadership of the government of this country, led by the president, whenever we just see small fires, as Professor Karim once warned us, that we must deal with the small flames before they become wildfires. I think the way we dealt with it under your leadership, clearly, we have not seen any flames, we have only seen small fires. I want to say vaccination is still the best protection for all of us and for all South Africans. At the present moment, we have, under your leadership, President, administered more than just under 49 million doses of vaccine. 51.1% of the adult population is covered through the vaccination. But we want to say even today that it's still time to come forward. We still need protection. The boosters, we have the capacity to administer for those who still haven't taken their first jab, but also for those who are eligible for boosters. Just to remind the honorable members and members of the South African public that adults between the ages of 18 and 49 years can get their boosters after 90 days of their last jab. And also, whether it was Pfizer or J&J, you are eligible for boosters. But also for those who are 50 and above, you can also get one booster. You're also eligible after every 90 days to get another booster because the virus is still in our midst. So we urge everybody to come forward and be protected. We don't want to see what is happening in some of our in some of the far-flung countries. Your leadership, President, in this fight against COVID and the campaign for equity of access to the tools, including vaccines and therapeutics, is recognized in the continent, in African continent, but also beyond. As a result of this, over the last year of 2022, we have received various invitations, either directed to the President or to the Ministry of Health, to take part in various discussions about pandemic preparedness and prevention, including at the United Nations, where the President was invited, and we had the honor of representing him there. But I can say to the members of this House and to the nation that indeed South Africa is held in high esteem in terms of how we managed to deal with the pandemic and how we're still protecting our population. The pandemic and the steps we have taken resulted in some setbacks in as far as dealing with some of our health programs, including childhood vaccines. One of the results of such has been the recent outbreak of measles, starting in the Limpopo province in October, and then spread into Mpumalanga, Northwest, Free State, and Gauteng province. At the current moment, up to just over 500 children have had confirmed measles. Vaccination program is being rolled out. We have the capacity and the ability, so all provinces are rolling out vaccination for measles for children between 6 months and 15 years. We take this opportunity to call on all parents to make sure that they can check their children's road to health cards. And if you are not sure about the vaccination status, take your child to the nearest health facility so that they can be vaccinated against measles. The nearest clinic and the nearest hospital. On Sunday, the 5th of February, we confirmed that 2 sisters from Diepsloot in Johannesburg were confirmed by laboratory tests to have contracted the disease of cholera after I traveled to Malawi, our neighbor. In Malawi, the cholera has really taken a very high toll, with more than 1,200 people already passed away from this. Since then, a third member of the family was also confirmed to have cholera. But almost 10 days after this, the cases have remained only the 3, and there's no further clinical and laboratory confirmation. And we are confident that because the incubation period for cholera is 2 to 5 days, we are confident that this is now being contained. But we nevertheless still call upon all South Africans to take the necessary precautions, because cholera can be prevented with using clean water, but also making sure that we keep hand hygiene whenever we use the bathroom. Another area where we're busy with the catch-up is in the area of combating HIV and TB and sexually transmitted diseases. During the high levels of COVID and various restrictions, the number of people testing for HIV had reduced, and also those who initiated on treatment had been going down. But under the SANAC, South African National AIDS Council, we have developed a catch-up plan and a welcome back for those who have stopped taking their treatment. Similarly, with the tuberculosis, there was a reduction in terms of people who have been tested and those who are starting on treatment. And similarly, we have started our catch-up in terms of this. With the situation being stabilized, I can say to you, Honorable Excellency President and members, that we are also catching up in terms of improving the quality of services, including infrastructure, which we are rolling out all over the country. One of the flagships which will be launching in the next few weeks is the Limpopo Academic Hospital, which will change the state of health services in that province and reduce the need for people to travel from Limpopo to Gauteng for specialized treatment. So,
thank you very much, Minister. We'll now move on to Honorable N.K. Sharif.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair. Today, I stand here to echo the voices of women who have been lost, women whose innocence has been stolen, young girls who will be murdered today, tomorrow, and next week. These voices cannot go unheard. With all due disrespect, Mr. President, declaring gender-based violence and femicide a pandemic without proper ring-fenced budgets, prioritizing implementation, proper resourcing of GBVF frontline workers, and without any political will is misleading and frankly patronizing. Debates to stop. GBVF is not a tool to be used for politics. Minister Tele, this is our lives. The crime stats paint a shocking picture of your impotence to protect women. You have the nerve to shamefully weaponize the experience of women on this stage and use it as a cheap gimmick. The crime stats are staggering. In the last 5 years, there have been 281,806 sexual offenses, 223,554 rapes, 40,909 sexual assaults. These are not just stats or numbers. These are real people's lives. I want you to think long and hard about this, Minister, lucky to be raped once. It's estimated that only 4% of rapes are reported. So the number of people raped since 2017 up until 2022 could be as high as 5.5 million. Take a moment, Mr. President, let that sink in. The National Strategic Plan is meant to combat this. We must interrogate the progress of the NSP and ensure its implementation before it becomes a dusty file on a shelf in an office. The work civil society has put into the NSP cannot be wasted. There is still no National Council of GBVF. Let's start there. What is your intervention, Mr. President? Why didn't you tell us what is happening there? Instead, we have a secretariat that is getting paid cash money but is not meeting targets. Is that what you call the fight against GBVF? Because to me, it's pretty weak. Let's talk facts. 52% of the measly 21 million rand budget is allocated to departments for the NSP has been used, and only 22% of the targets have been achieved. That is a failure. Whatever way you look at it, 22 out of 100 is a massive fail. 35% of targets not achieved is even worse. You should all hang your heads in shame. The numbers speak for itself. What this means, in simple terms, is that the fight against GBVF is failing. The lack of progress lays at the feet of the ANC government, and we as South Africans must take it upon ourselves and fire them at the polls. Mr. President, you focused on load shedding, but you failed to consider and address its effects on GBVF. Like everything in society, gender-based violence and its interventions will be impacted by the energy crisis. In a country that already hates women, being in total darkness so often poses so many risks to our direct safety. Walking, driving home, or being alone in complete darkness has increased our anxiety that we as women feel every single day living in this country. How much more must we suffer before we are taken seriously? You glossed over sexual offences courts, but failed to address the effects of load shedding on continuous and increased postponements of multiple GBVF cases across the country. Load shedding has forced the Johannesburg High Court, for example, to return to online hearings or find alternative venues. Magistrates and regional courts may have resource constraints that limit their ability to have online hearings. The continuous postponement of cases causes major second-degree trauma to the victims, which in many cases, the perpetrator is out on bail. Mr. President, resilience won't save us. Only bold action will. Being resilient cannot be the start and the end of women in this country. Tomorrow, in your rebuttal, Mr. President, I urge you to choose action over resilience. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to the Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic, the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the NCOP, the Deputy President of the governing party, the African National Congress, honorable members, fellow South Africans. Dimasiar. In the not so distant future, we should be able to use predictive technology of artificial intelligence to, amongst others, detect undue conduct in this House to strengthen the work of the Speaker in upholding decorum of the House and maintaining order. In this regard, we have established the Artificial Intelligence Institute of South Africa, which was launched on the 30th of November 2022 in partnership with the University of Johannesburg and the Tshwane University of Technology. In part, as an acknowledgement that AI technology holds the greatest potential of resuscitating socio-economic recovery and development of the country, and secondly, in line with the recommendations of the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Homegrown AI solutions are being developed within the AI Institute of South Africa to support the application of AI across sectors and harness innovation-based production for commercialization. The immediate beneficiaries of the work of the AI Institute and in support of the great strides underway to improve the quality of basic education, of course, the masters of contradictions would want South Africans to believe otherwise, and supported by the Chemicals Industry Education and Training Authority, CHETA, youth linked to the AISA JBS Hub have developed a virtual science laboratory that will be rolled out to STEM schools without science laboratories, and this will enable learners to perform science experiments virtually instead of the current situation where we only read science experiments in their textbooks using technology, and thus we are using technology to bridge societal gap. The TUT Hub will be launched in March 2023, and 4 new AI Institute SA Centers of Excellence will be established in the 2023-2024 financial year. At this point, I would like the House to join me in extending well wishes to Professor Chirizima Rana, the incoming rector of the United Nations University, who has contributed immensely to this country, the region of SADC, and the African continent's progress in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and emerging technologies. We look forward to his continued contribution in the development of science and technology in South Africa and Africa in general. Prof. Honorable Chairperson, when our nation was weeping the sudden departure of our beloved Mama Winnie Mandela, there were those who took to the podium to ask for a signal from Mama to divide the women of our nation. I want to assure Mama Winnie that analog signal will soon be a thing of the past. We have concluded the consultations on the analog switch off for the broadcast digital migration in full compliance to the order of the Constitutional Court, but most importantly, 44% of the set-top box installers are women, and this we do to make sure Mama Winnie multiplies, but that women are no longer victims of JBV because of economic dependence on men. The SABC is starting to take advantage of the increase in the number of channels on the DTT platform. That is the direct outcome of the broadcast digital migration. SABC News has launched a new 24 hours news channel on the DTT platform on all indigenous languages, meaning that for the first time in the history of broadcasting in this country, millions of South Africans no longer wait for evening news bulletins and current affairs shows to receive news and information in their own languages. Digital migration is enabling the transformation of the broadcasting sector to ensure that edu and infotainment becomes the base for a viable and sustainable creative industry. Zentech will soon launch a homegrown OTT platform that will be anchored by NEMISA, but will be available to other content producers. NEMISA continues to train upcoming content producers, including training unemployed youth on podcasts, vlog, and storytelling using mobile devices. Our goal is to eventually make this platform home for quality films, documentaries, and children's stories, in addition to the SABC Plus OTT platform. The launch of this OTT platform will be in the first quarter of 2023-24 financial year. Honorable Chairperson, the telecommunications companies have 5 years to complete the rollout of 4G and 5G networks, including to rural areas. This from the spectrum released through BDM and the auction that we just completed, and to connect South Africans to high-speed broadband. In the meantime, through BBI and funded by the Broadband Access Fund of the Presidential Employment Stimulus, and Honorable Sangwa, it is not managed from the presidency, we are facilitating the rollout of 3,000 Wi-Fi hotspots across 16 districts of our country. And we are, through this fund, we are connecting 50,000 households on fiber to the home and Wi-Fi to the home technologies. In addition, through the SA Connect program, we are going to roll out 14,024 community Wi-Fi hotspots in the 23-24 financial year across 16 districts, and the other 19,515 community Wi-Fi hotspots will be rolled out in 2024 financial years across the 36 districts, completing the over 33,000 community Wi-Fi hotspots that will enable South Africans to have universal access to the internet. And BBI is going to use ISPs to connect these Wi-Fi hotspots as part of transforming the sectors to make sure that Mama Winnie does not need to send the signal, because this government will ensure network availability to all rural areas. The cost to communicate are not decreasing at the pace that government wants, and to mitigate this, and in the first quarter of the new financial year, we're going to issue a policy direction to the regulator ICASA to study models that other countries are adopting to fast-track the reduction of cost to communicate without relying on market forces. Government has completed stakeholder consultations on the consolidation of different emergency numbers to a single emergency number for the country in a manner that harnesses our competitiveness in call center operations and partnership with the private sector. We will soon provide policy direction to the regulator to amend the regulations related to emergency numbers. This will improve the rate of responses to emergency calls, including through the use of interactive voice responses. We appreciate that the post office is a critical service channel for our people, in particular for those in rural and remote areas. For the post office to achieve this, we need to operate as a viable business, and all efforts are being made to rebuild this important service agency to a sustainable business. At present, personnel expenditure constitutes 68% of total company expenditure. Obviously, this situation is untenable and requires open and frank engagement between the leadership of the post office, workers, and workers' representatives to consider all options for purposes of retaining SAPO into a viable entity that will increase more jobs in the future and provide for e-commerce logistics backbone for the country. At the moment, the options are: do we save some jobs or lose all jobs? Do we close some post office branches or close all post office? Our commitment to the viability of the post office is because its branch network provides the base network infrastructure for the post bank. As we await National Assembly to finalize the post bank amendment bill, we continue to work with the Reserve Bank to finalize the corporatization, licensing, and repurposing of the post bank as a fully fledged bank, but as a state bank. The post bank will commence the revamping of 100 post offices branches to ready itself for its new role. And in addition to the repackaging of its product and service offering, the post bank has commenced with the onboarding of township businesses such as Paza shops to form part of its payment channels. This is part of the first steps to ensure that townships and small businesses are not stepchildren in the economy of this country due to financial exclusion. Honorable Chairperson, during the debate, Honorable Malima stood here and criticized the response of the Presidential Protection Services by the action they took to protect the person of the president. I don't even want to comment on Honorable Steenhuisen because we'll need to talk about metric, post-metric qualification. As Mama Winnie Mandela told us, any acceptance of humiliation, indignity, or insult is acceptance of inferiority. We are not inferior. We won't accept attempts to make this president inferior. We are descendants of great and resilient leaders. And a self-respecting member of this house and addressing a joint sitting, come here and justify apartheid, which is declared a crime against humanity. It's a pity that in this house, some members are brainwashed to behave like puppets after their puppet master. But if I did not know better, I would say,
As we move to
emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be Honorable N.F. Sibambu.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. I had not anticipated that the speaker who spoke here is going to sing as well, because we're going to deal with the others who came here to sing for supper. Allow me, Commander-in-Chief, to once again avoid responding to the childish and mostly paltry, trivial, and insignificant inputs that came from members of the ruling party. We are going to utilize this opportunity to take a nuanced approach and speak much more decisively to what is to be done in relation to the electricity crisis confronting society. Many of the speakers that came here never presented anything much more tangible and believable as to what is to be done. One of the careerist members of parliament who spoke last yesterday even sang a children's kindergarten song, seeking for a job from his president. What is that lyrics again, Komisambu, saying, here, who? Mr. Ramadola, give us a job, here, who? I think that as part of the whipper, we must also hire a jumping castle, so that after singing that song, they must go and jump there. They will be joined by this one who just sang again here. And this person who just left here now is presiding over the State Information Technology Agency, which is failing to synchronize all the technological platforms that the state has, police stations, healthcare facilities, and the entire system operate in separation. But we've got a SITA that cannot provide a singular synchronized system. She's presiding over a South African Post Office, which is going to retrench 6,000 workers in the immediate. And she is waxing really clear about things that are not there. She's presiding over ICASA, which is failing to deal decisively with the monopoly of the multi-choice domination that has been operating almost alone without accountability in the broadcast industry. I said, President and Commander-in-Chief, that the approach today will be nuanced. So I'm going to speak first to the solutions as to what is to be done in relation to electricity. And then I will conclude with the diagnosis. So we'll take it the other way around so that we can then be able to move forward. But first, let us make reference to the founding manifesto of the Economic Freedom Fighters, which was adopted 10 years ago in Soweto when this mighty movement was founded. On energy, the EFF founding manifesto says, stabilization of energy sources, in particular the supply of electricity, is important for an economic development strategy that will include the development of more industries. Whilst the South African state should intensify the efforts currently in place for sustainable, consistent energy provisions, other energy means and other forms of generations should be explored. And this includes further research on how energy derived out of uranium can be safely transferred into sustainable, environmentally friendly electricity for industrial development, public purpose, and for use by households. We said 10 years ago that let us explore the usage of uranium as a source of energy. We even said that the principle on energy is that the green energy sources should be pursued and that the state should heavily invest in the green energy corporations, which will explore manufacturing and install green energy alternatives in the whole of South Africa. When we spoke about green energy sources, we spoke it in the context that it should be the state, not independent power producers. That must be at the center of rollout of renewable energy. Now, I'm going to talk to the solutions as what is to be done. Number one is that we must stop this illusion that South Africa is going to immediately discontinue the usage of coal as base load energy sources, because that is the only way we can sustain our electricity. In that annual pilgrimage that you go to in Davos in the World Economic Forum, one of the vice premiers of the People's Republic of China, Liu He, who is the director of the Central Financial and Economic Affairs, responded when he was asked about what is the PRC going to do about carbon neutrality. He said that China is going to increase its investment in carbon capture and storage. And this is against the fact that China consumes possibly 20, if not 40 times of energy more than South Africa. The energy sources that come from coal in China, Mr. Matanshe, is 1 million megawatts. Eskom in its entirety is not even at 50,000 megawatts currently. And then the leader of the PPRC says that we're going to invest in carbon capture and storage. But when South Africa was in the United Nations Climate Change Conferences in Glasgow and in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in both 2021 and 2022, we kept on committing there that we're going to close off our power stations ahead of schedule. We even accepted this $8.5 billion US, which was promised by the West, as a way of diverting us from what otherwise should be our base load in terms of energy supply. The president of the ANC even ridiculed the Minister of Energy when he said that the West is trying to bully South Africa on the African continent into abandoning coal. He said, no, this one is just a mine worker. He does not know anything. We're in a crisis now in terms of what has happened under all of those issues. Now, that illusion must be dealt with. We have to now invest in clean coal technologies, working with the CSIR and the Council of Geosciences. Number two, we need to plug into the national grid the floating storage regasification units. The Secretary General of the ANC will not know what that is because in the schooling system before tertiary, they don't teach that. So the FSRUs, when Germany was faced with the energy crisis, out of the necessary military operations that are happening in Ukraine now, they approved within 12 months the power ships. So power ships is like a power stations that come from the sea, and then it parks on the shores and plugs into the national grid. Here in South Africa, through the risk mitigation independent power producers procurement program, South Africa approved the car power ship from Turkey to plug in 1,220 megawatts of electricity. Again, Secretary General of the ANC, 1,200 megawatts can electrify the entirety of the Northern Cape, even the entirety of the Eastern Cape on its own. But due to those who are seeking bribes, those who are trying to extort the people who are awarded that bid, the car power ships cannot be plugged into the grid to now ameliorate the energy crisis that we have. The reality is that in the immediate, you have got no any other solution except plugging in the FSRUs from Turkey, from China, and from the Russian Federation. That is one of the immediate things that we must have to deal with. And then number three, we need to approve the proposal by Rosatom, the Rosatom nuclear power station and energy company, which currently provides more than 20% of electricity in the Russian Federation. It employs more than 250,000 people. It has been here in South Africa saying that, why don't you give us a power purchase agreement like you're giving to your friends from the West and build up to 6,000 megawatts of nuclear energy, which everyone else allows and agrees that is part of clean energy sources. That is one of the things that have to be done in the immediate. But also we must not surrender the state capacity to invest directly in renewable energy. We must do what the fighters said, the ground forces said in Uncle Tom's Hall in July 2013. We said that the state must play a central role in renewable energy. That is what the founding manifesto of this 10-year organization said must be done. Part of the immediate things that you have to deal with is to cut off the aluminum smelters because they consume upward of 800 megawatts, which can then lessen the pressure on the grid in terms of what should happen. Let us collaborate with Mozambique to complete the Cabora Bassa hydroelectric power station so that we can continue. So these are some of the issues. We have to talk about this because we know that you're going to be out of power. We are going to take power as the EFF. We do not want to take power under darkness. The question is, why are all of these things not being pursued? It's because, fragrantly, the president of the ANC defies his less than 2 months resolution of shifting ESCOM from public enterprises to energy. And the purpose, he says here, that the reason is because the Minister of Public Enterprises must continue to restructure ESCOM. What is that restructuring? It's the mutilation of ESCOM into 3 different components. So like ESCOM is supposed to be one board, but it's being mutilated now into 3 different companies. And he makes a false claim that such is consistent with the global practice. That is not the truth. The biggest power utility in the world is in China. It generates more than 4,000 gigawatts. It has got more than 900,000 kilometers of transmission lines. It's involved in distribution of electricity. The Rosatom I spoke about in China, in the Russian Federation, is involved, and it's one company that is involved in the entire value chain of electricity distribution. In Germany, Uniper goes to the extent of even involved in mining the entire value chain, one company. But you want to mutilate ESCOM. And what is the purpose of the mutilation of ESCOM? They want to allow the municipalities and a different division to distribute and be the ones that are at the cold face of facing with ratepayers of electricity. And then have ESCOM with the 48,000 kilometers of transmission lines, which must necessarily be forced to buy electricity from independent power producers. The deputy president, the former deputy president of the Republic, once said that ESCOM is not going to privatize. It is privatized. So the entire crisis of South Africa is this need to want to privatize ESCOM, particularly power generation. That let us have transmission there, and then we call our friends to come and be the ones that plug energy into the transmission line. That is at the center of South Africa's problem. A capitalist-driven, greedy project that seeks to undermine everything else there. If you want to attach the profit motive into the energy provision, public good provision, you are definitely never going to have a solution. Electricity is a public good. It must be provided by all of us. Now, President, I'm going to close. You know, one of the biographers of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Anthony Butler, says that when he bought his first car, he was known for driving that particular car, a BMW, in reserve gear for hundreds of meters. So a person drives a car in reserve gear for hundreds of meters. It's recorded. It is apparent and very evident now that what Mr. Ramaphosa did to his car is doing to South Africa today. He is taking our country in reserve gear. Everything else that we thought we had made progress on is going backward. We thought that we're not going to have the crisis of electricity. We've got crisis of electricity now. Whoever thought we're going to have water shedding? We've got a problem of water now. Whoever thought that we're going to be in a situation that more and more people even when the population is growing, more and more people are going to lose their jobs. The levels of unemployment, more than 12 million people are unemployed because of this man. He is taking this country in a reverse gear the same way he did when he was utilizing his first car. The public infrastructure is collapsing. The hospitals are collapsing. The schooling systems, despite the claims that we make here, is not working appropriately. How do you explain that you have got close to 1 million children who write their exams at the senior secondary level, but you only have got 160,000 spaces available to take them at post-secondary level? What nonsense is that? What kind of thinking of a government is that? We are being taken on the reserve gear because we do not have a solid government. What excites him is that petty thing he was doing in Mpumalanga. He says he's closing a pothole and he's fascinated by closing a pothole on a gravel road. What logic is that? That is what we're dealing with. We have to save ourselves, South Africa, from this nonsense. We have to save ourselves. We have to save ourselves from this rubbish. What is happening in this country is a man-made crisis. That is why when we go on the 20th of March 2023, we must be saying, Puma Ramaphosa Puma, Puma Ramaphosa Puma, Booyah electricity, Booyah, Amanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed to the Honorable Chief Whip of the Opposition, Honorable Kwafube.
Speaker and the chairperson of the NCOP, it would be amiss of me to not express deep disappointment following the events of Thursday night in this chamber. We could never justify the disruption of the business of Parliament to the point where the Sergeant at Arms is called to wrestle MPs off the stage. Equally, please listen, equally and perhaps more crucially, we cannot have a presiding officer who fails to keep the House in order despite being empowered by the rules to do so. And the failures of the presiding officers resulting in armed security forces on the floor of Parliament. This chamber is a separate arm of state with its own security personnel who do not report to the executive. Armed guards are barred from this house unless there's a threat to life. The case that the DA brought before the Constitutional Court confirms this crucial principle of the separation of powers. The scenes that we saw on Thursday night should never be repeated. That violence, that chaos has absolutely no place in a constitutional democracy. We cannot allow Parliament to degenerate in that matter. It is more so when the people of South Africa are looking to their public representatives for solutions to the crises that they face daily. There has never been a time since the dawn of democracy that our country needed to hear from the president about the issues that are the perpetual albatrosses around their necks. Instead, the president delivered a state of disaster. It is the disaster that has come to characterize his term in office. It is the disaster that is his cabinet. It is the disaster that is the caucus of the ANC of the 6th Parliament. Speaker, allow me to perhaps direct this to the president because I fear the trappings of power and the cushion of executive office has left us with a head of state that is completely out of touch with the issues facing South Africans. Sir, People are forced to make choices that are perhaps beyond your grasp. A choice between a meal or a taxi fare. Umbane okanye ukhwelisa abantwana baye esikolweni. Ukulinda de kuse xa umuntu emayile ukuya esibhedlele kuba akho ambulance izayo. Abafazi nabantwana abaninzi baphela bengayi epolice station kuba bayayazi into yoba noba bahlukunyeziwe, noba badlwengule, akukho ncedo luza kuza. Imihla nezolo abantu balala bengatyanga, nokuncinane abanako kuyonakala kubo, akukho mbane, iintsuku ziqengqeleka. Young people are without work. They have no hope. All they have is a life of indignity because of joblessness. Umbutho we-ANC uzimisele uba ngohlohle zabo. Umbutho ongakwazi ukuba imali ebekelwe abantu ngexesha likabhubhane we-COVID-19. Ama-comrades ayetshintshiselana ekhuphisana ngokutya imali yabantu. Upremier Dube apha, uPremier Dube Ncube ebezozingomba isifuba apha, kodwa abantu baseThekwini sithetha nje badada enyonywini, iinkonzo aziyi ebantwini. Njengomntu omtsha, ndicela nimamele, njengomntu omtsha okhokela njengomntu omtsha okhokela noko kudala nina nisedabini, ndiye ndizibuze into yoba nonelisekile na yimeko yabantu baseMzantsi Afrika under urhulumente wele ANC. Nditsho qho ukuba nanilwele inkululeko yesi sizwe, kodwa ngokuqinisekileyo ngoku seningabacinezeli babantu abamnyama abangathathi ntweni. Abazali bethu bathemba iingcuka ezombethe ifele legusha apha ngani. I have no doubt in my mind that the founders of your organization, who are towering figures in our history books, can no longer recognize their party under this current crop of leaders. You have brought this country to its knees. You have nailed the coffin and created a nation in disaster. I want to agree with Minister Zulu when she congratulates the SA women's cricket team for their victory. But Minister, I want to take it a step further. And I want to say to you, the women's cricket team needs to be paid, and they need to be paid equally. The platitudes are not going to work. They need to get what's worth to them. Listening to the speakers in this debate, it is no wonder that we find ourselves in a state of paralysis. Minister Gungubele leveled an attack on the best run metro in the country, an accolade his country could never dream of doing. Perhaps I should give you insight as to why the city of Cape Town is the golden goose, as Honorable Manamela says. The Honorable Manamela, who is the perpetual deputy minister, I really hope during your reshuffle this time, President, you're going to finally appoint him, because he's been pretzeling, auditioning for that job for decades now. Let me educate you about how we did this. The DA wrestled the city from the ANC, ran a multi-party coalition government, subsequently won a majority, cleaned out the corruption, and began the long, hard process of building a world-class city. As we speak, this metro is the only one that spends its largest portion of its budget on the poor. It is the only city that has the lowest unemployment rate against the national one. It is now one of the few DA governments that is seeking to free itself and its citizens from ESCOM. Kucho every single independent service delivery barometer in this country. Where we have governed with a majority, we are doing the same. We attempted the same model in the city of Johannesburg before the checkbook politics of the ANC kicked into full swing. In Tshwane, we inherited a 16-year legacy of disastrous ANC governance where the likes of Sputla were using the city as their ATM. The process of uncovering and cleaning out the rot meant that service delivery suffered, and that the true state of the city's finances finally came to bear. However, we don't hold ourselves to the same standard as the ANC. Where we were voted out in Johannesburg because we refused to hand over the safe keys to criminals, we took to the opposition benches to hold the government to account. Where service delivery and financial management was not at the standard that we expect in Tshwane, we held our own to account. I can understand that the concept of accountability and transparency is foreign to the ANC. President Ramaphosa would rather add another minister to deal with the energy crisis than fire ministers Gwede Mantashe and Pravin Gordhan, who have dragged us into a state of disaster. But Mr. President, I must say, it is cruel, even for Ringala Nzinzi, Efana no Minister Mantashe, for him to hear about his demotion during SONA like the rest of us. A quick WhatsApp message could have done, Mr. President. To add insult to injury, it is reported that the former mayor of Tshwane, who presented over the decay and destruction of that city, Sputla Ramokgopa, is now likely going to be this minister of electricity. In the ANC, ineptitude and corruption is rewarded with executive office. Colleagues, if we are to start rescuing South Africa from the ANC's disastrous years, then we must start ensuring that Parliament works. When Parliament works, South Africa will work. A parliament that works would have never nominated and elected a speaker who has a questionable record in government and who views Parliament as an extension of the executive. A working parliament would have grabbed the opportunity with both hands following the Zondo Commission report into state capture. Under this speaker, there's a deliberate reluctance to deal with the findings of the report. A working parliament would not have shamelessly shielded a sitting president from accountability from multiple crimes that took place on his farm. It would have voted to investigate the president. Indeed, ours is not a functioning parliament because otherwise we would have established a portfolio committee for the presidency. And now to the most important people, the people at home, whose lives have been plunged into darkness, I urge you to be angry. I urge you to be angrier than usual. Our resilience as a nation should not be taken as license to be abused. We do not have to tolerate this corruption, the poor service delivery, and the state of disaster. Let us take our anger to the polls. Let's vote out the ANC. Let's vote them out. Madiniwe kwanele.
Thank you very much. Now the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services.
President Ramaphosa, the chairperson, my colleagues in the executive, all honorable members, the president has presented a pragmatic and decisive speech to resolve the challenges of the people of this country. And I expected a debate from the opposition parties. But what did they come and do here? All of them, without exception, the EFF, the DA, the Freedom Front Plus, they came here to present their election manifesto. They were not here to present solutions to the people of this country. In fact, the commander-in-chief or the supreme leader of the EFF even presented the state of the city of Johannesburg. Honorable Shivambu has just left here, attempted to present some ideas. But unlike, and I'm very disappointed with Honorable Shivambu, because almost like Honorable Steenhuisen quoted his hero, P.W. Botha, without acknowledging him on the Rubicon speech. Honorable Shivambu has just dusted off all ANC documents and presented them here as his. Let me show you how. Honorable Shivambu speaks about the state-owned bank. The ANC has resolved on the state-owned bank, and the Minister of Telecommunications has already put a bill in this house. The state-owned bank is already in the process of being constituted. On the issue of ESCOM playing a role on renewable, ESCOM is already repurposing Komati to play a role in renewables. There is nothing new. As we speak now, ESCOM Komati is being renewed. We are working to ensure that ESCOM plays a role on renewables. He also came in here and speak about China, that China only deals with one company in terms of unbundling. China has got various state-owned companies in various provinces and regions dealing with energy generation, dealing with distribution, dealing with the supply of electricity. It does not have only one company like ourselves. It is therefore dishonest and intellectual misrepresentation by Honorable Shivambu. We have got a unique challenge and a unique situation which we have to respond to as the governing party. And the president has never said that the state must never play a role in renewables or in the energy mix. It is an energy mix that has been presented over years through the ERP. It's not something that has been brought by President Ramaphosa. And the ISMO bill that once proposed the unbundling and the divisions in ESCOM does not come from President Ramaphosa. We have just dusted off the idea and rebuild on it because of the current challenges that the country is facing. So Honorable Shivambu has said nothing new here. He has just brought what the ANC is currently doing. Honorable Warubo has just left here. She argues that we have not done anything on COVID-19 theft. It is public knowledge that people have been arrested, monies have been recovered for the theft on COVID-19. The ANC government has held people to account. Through the SIU, money have been recovered that was stolen during the COVID-19. And this ANC government is continuing to work on building and strengthening the NPA. She also says we are not doing anything with Palapala. This parliament debated, considered, and thoroughly looked at the report on Palapala. And this parliament decided in terms of its rules to reject the report of the panel. So this parliament has considered and engaged on the Palapala report. Honorable members and the leader of the opposition, Honorable Steenhuisen, fresh from being labeled a Mampara of the Week by the Sunday Times, has unconsciously exposed the true intentions of the Democratic Alliance. Honorable Steenhuisen, who quoted the Rubicon speech without acknowledging, because you are ashamed to acknowledge the source, the leader of the apartheid regime, P.W. Botha. But in reality, the people of South Africa know that you are cut from the same cloth, both in words and in deeds. Even if you choose not to acknowledge your hero, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Honorable Manamela, has unmasked you. The skewed racial service delivery in the city of Cape Town, in the Western Cape, Tshwane, the city of Johannesburg, and everywhere.
Minister, just a second.
Oh, okay.
Honorable Nkosi, on what point are you rising?
Thanks, Chairperson. It's a point of order. Which dusty document of the ANC mentions FSRU? Which document that gathered dust in the ANC talks about FSRU? And how many votes did you get there in Nazareth?
That's not the point of order. That's not the point of order, and will therefore allow the minister to proceed.
Don't worry about Honorable Johnson. This is the only opportunity I have to speak. All the minutes have been taken by the Supreme Leader. The position of the DA to attack cadre deployment is also consistent with the P.W. Botha vision. It is a sophisticated racist trope that black people should not hold strategic and leadership positions in the country. As Honorable Nkonjo yesterday correctly demonstrated, there are countless incidents of the DA deploying their own people here in the Western Cape, in other places where they govern at the expense of the fiscus and rationality. Let me remind the DA, when ESCOM was named as the global power company of the year, it was not under apartheid. It was led by the ANC in 2002. In this, by the Financial Times Global Energy Awards, the CEO, it was Thulani Kabasha. The South African Revenue Services, not long ago, was one of the best tax revenue collection agencies in the world. And the commissioner was none other than P.G. Gordon. This shows that cadre deployment works. And we have done it before, and we will do it again. In terms of rebuilding the state-owned entities, we will continue to ensure that people of unbreakable record, ethical leaders lead state-owned entities, they lead in government, and they revive state-owned entities, including government departments. The two institutions that I just referred to, ESCOM, they were not broken down by cadre deployment. They were broken down by systematic corruption and not just by being led by black people, as the DA strongly says. It was corrupt individuals. And it is for that reason that last week in court here in the Western Cape, when officials appeared of the city of Cape Town for the corruption here, it was not said as the DA. It was those officials who appeared in court. And those officials, they are continuing the trial. We will allow the processes of the law to take its place. Same as we'll allow the processes of the law to take its place with all people that have been arrested for the corruption at ESCOM. Those individuals will be held to account. A free and a fair trial will ensue. Honorable Speaker, here sits leaders of the opposition parties who meet regularly with one sole purpose: to remove the ANC from power. It has got nothing to do with service delivery or about the people of this country. Their agenda has got nothing to do with water, has got nothing to do with provision of electricity. It is only and nothing else. And the people of South Africa must know them, because this country is not only run for elections, but we are running South Africa to provide services. It's about the people. We do not just exist for our own sake, but to deliver services to the people of this country. And we will continue through the guiding sonar that the president has delivered to continue to resolve the challenges of electricity, to continue to resolve the challenges of water provision, to continue to resolve the challenges of unemployment, to continue to resolve the challenges that of GBV that were said here. I'm gonna give stats. But honorable members, the president has led by sharing his power, even accepting some of the inputs from various political parties in this country. It is what we expect, that the opposition parties must come into the party. The crisis we are in, it is not as a making, and it is not a crisis for political opportunism to campaign. We all have an opportunity when next year comes, we are going to campaign. But now let's resolve the energy crisis, which is ESCOM. And the president has said everyone must bring their ideas. Well, Honorable Schreiber, yesterday, he made us to play a guessing game of who said what. Well, let's see if you could guess this, Honorable Steenhuisen. If the government declared a state of disaster, it will unlock the emergency reprioritization of resources. Guess who said this, Honorable Steenhuisen? It's not Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the ANC. No, it's not. It's Honorable Kalcharia, the DA spokesperson on public enterprises. But what does the DA do? They have now flip-flopped. They've changed. They are saying a state of disaster will lead to unemployment. I must tell you, Honorable Farouk, It is not the state of disaster that led to unemployment. It was the pandemic of COVID-19. It was the pandemic that affected a number of jobs, a number of challenges, unemployment, and all the issues that today led to this country struggling economically. We are now working to rebuild the economy, and we are back to the pre-COVID-19 economic growth statistics. What we need is to build from there as a society, and we can do so if we resolve the energy crisis. We will be able to resolve the economic challenges of our country, the unemployment challenges of our country, and the high crime rate that honorable members are bemoaning. And Honorable Kwaribe says there is no conviction on GBV. I must state that that is totally incorrect. It is wrong. On GBV, 74% conviction rates across the country, which is happening every day. Our courts are convicting someone, giving them harsh sentences on a daily basis. And this, I'm not Tamsaki, is reality. Katlego Mabote was convicted by the Johannesburg High Court. 396 convictions from 420 verdict cases. 5 additional TCC sites were established from the 2020-21-2022 financial year, bringing the total to 60. During the reporting period, 34,456 matters were reported to the Tutuzela care centers, a conviction rate of 76%. So it is not true that there is no work that is being done. Indeed, gender-based violence continues to be a challenge, but here, Honorable Sheriff come and says we must not politic and use gender-based violence, but she does the opposite. She does exactly what she wants us not to do. This is a matter that all of us must work together to resolve as a society. It is a challenge that is facing this country, and we must work to ensure that we eradicate all forms of gender-based violence. And as you speak here, Honorable Steenhuisen, Honorable Karibe, and Honorable Shibambo, you want to continue to play the divide and rule with the ANC, believing that you are going to divide the deputy president with the president. You will divide the president and the deputy president of the republic and the newly elected deputy president of the ANC. You also believe you can divide Honorable Mantashe and with PG. And that's why you continue to start to play those games. Honorable Shibambo, that is what you are saying, Honorable Grunewald, and everyone. You will not divide the ANC. We have emerged from a conference. We are united in unison, marching together to address the challenges the people of South Africa are facing. We are out of Nazareth. We are done. I hear Honorable Josie. He thinks that he's mocking me with the numbers. As a true Democrat, I have accepted the outcome. We are continuing, all of us here in the ANC, and we know that we can only resolve the challenges of our country if we work together as a unit and united. And we call the people of South Africa to march with the ANC through the call that the president has made, that all of us, let's make our contribution to resolve our social challenges. I want to conclude, Honorable Chairperson, by paying tribute to the fallen heroes of our struggle. The fallen heroes in our country who has played very important role, the former Speaker Ginwala and people in the arts and sports. The former captain of Orlando Pirates, Mr. John Mieti, who belonged to the golden generation of Bafana Bafana. And also the untimely murder of AKA. And we call the police to arrest swiftly those who perpetrated this crime, including his friend, the chef, Tabele Motswana. In 2017, on an NTV in Kenya, in an interview with Larry Madowo, who is now an international CNN correspondent, AKA said the following, and I quote, "We are trying to go to the next stage of our revolution. The first stage of the revolution was political power. Now we are trying to get economic power for the masses in South Africa. But I believe in the potential of South Africa. I believe in my people as our greatest resource. Rest in peace, Super Mega. May the Lord take its course." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I see there's a hand there. Honorable Makwetla.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much for the privilege. I wish to rise on a point of privilege on a matter of national importance. In the course of this debate of the State of the Nation addressed by the President, there were statements that were made from the podium of the joint city by members of parliament that I believe was out of oversight. I wish to urge the Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Chair of the NCOP to consult Hansard and establish the consistency and the admissibility of the statements that were made by Honorable Leader of the EFF, Sello, Julius Malema, and Honorable Mente, wherein they called for the removal of the constitutionally established government of the day through extra-constitutional and unlawful action. I want to urge the presiding officers that the statement must be referred to the relevant committees of Parliament, the Rules Committee, and their conduct be referred to the Ethics Committee of Parliament in order to establish whether this is in keeping with the oath of office of members, but also to establish whether that is my submission, Chair and Honorable Speaker. Lastly, the seriousness of these statements must also be verified. In the event there is seriousness of intent on the part of those who made the statements, Parliament must urge and enjoin government to take the necessary lawful steps to make sure that anarchy is not let loose on the land. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm sure the point is noted. It should be looked at. But Honorable Peggy, I saw your hand was up. Peggy got them.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I was rising on the fact that the matters which are being raised have happened yesterday. The time has passed. So the rules do not allow that. So let us close the matter, please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I see Kokube's hand is up.
House Chair, I think it's quite important before people make lengthy speeches that you educate them on the rules. If the matter has passed, a member can't simply have drivel for 5 minutes and you don't stop them. That is against the rules, Speaker. That's against the rules. You should have ruled them out of order. Because unless there's somebody on the podium saying something problematic, the rules don't allow them to make their input now outside of the debate.
Honorable members, I do think that we need to be a bit more measured, a bit more tolerant. The matter raised by Honorable Makwetla was a point of privilege. And all I did was to listen to that, and I've already made a ruling that the matter will be looked at. Honorable members, the speaker's list has been exhausted, and the president will provide a reply to the debate tomorrow. The joint sitting is now adjourned.
Viewers at home, as you can see, day 2 of the 2023 State of the Nation address has just been concluded, with members of all political parties represented in Parliament having been given an opportunity to respond to the President's State of the Nation address as it was delivered on the 9th of February 2023. Now, just to bring into focus the thematic areas for the joint debate that we've witnessed over the last 2 days, the state president delivered his annual State of the Nation address last week. And usually, after the president has delivered his address, members of parliament are given an opportunity, of course, all parties that are represented in parliament are given an opportunity to respond to the commitments that were made by the president, and also to reflect on the merits of what has been proposed or what is planned ahead for the year ahead. And of course, that platform is the joint debate that we have seen over the last 2 days. And it is also important for us to just reflect that the thematic areas that were discussed was not only the 2023 State of the Nation address. The president, of course, also made it clear in his address last week, over and above just recapping on the 4 critical areas of focus for the year ahead: load shedding, unemployment, poverty, and the rising cost of living. Number 4, crime and corruption. The president also made a commitment. Of course, he outlined progress that has been made in implementing the commitments that he made in his 2022 State of the Nation address. And those commitments were, the commitment was to ensure faster growth through investment, through an investment drive. The second one was, of course, the economic reforms, which is still work in progress, work underway. And also number 3 was public employment programs, which the president also reported on, progress on. And of course, the last one was expanding the infrastructure program. And of course, this year, the president went into detail in terms of what has been the progress that has been made in implementing the priorities from last year. But it is also important for us to bear in mind that we are now just over 14 months away from the national elections. And within that broader context, we have to bear in mind as well that the development landscape has shifted a lot. Of course, we know that in 2019, in 2018 rather, we found ourselves in a technical recession. And by the time the COVID pandemic hit in 2020, South Africa was quite hardest hit as a developing country as well. So we have to bear that in mind when we look at the progress that has been made, or the progress that has been reported, and the challenges that we know are still part and parcel of the country's development landscape. So importantly, it is important to also just indicate that all of the discussions that took place over the last 2 days are taking place within the context of the medium-term strategic framework, as was announced by the president in his 2019 speech, which was his first speech of the 6th dispensation, but it was, of course, his 3rd State of the Nation address at the time. But of course, these priorities, those 7 priorities of the MTSF, the medium-term strategic framework, which is, of course, government's 5-year plan, the plans that government was committing in terms of the priorities that will form part and parcel of key issues, policy priorities that government was going to give attention for implementation since 2019 up until the next elections. And within that context, obviously, we also have to bear in mind that these key priorities, they find expression, or they find a place located within the National Development Plan, a plan that was, of course, adopted in 2012. And within that broader development context, we obviously have to think about the electoral mandate, right? So within that broader context, we have to think about where we are right now as a country. And of course, all political parties that are represented in Parliament had the opportunity to reflect on the commitments that the president has made in terms of what lies ahead in 2023, going into 2024. And of course, as I've indicated, this is such a significant State of the Nation address, and it was a significant joint debate as well, because this is the final year really of the sixth dispensation, giving an opportunity not only to government, but to all of the state entities, to begin to consolidate the work that has been done, or the work that was started as per the 7 priorities of the MTSF, and of course to consolidate in relation to ensuring that there is an acceleration when it comes to policy implementation, and and wrapping up quite a number of key deliverables before we get into the 2024 national elections. With that said, the president will now have an opportunity, after having listened to the debates, the comments, the proposals or the counter proposals or the suggestions, or even the critique that came from all political parties. And of course, we know there's other platforms as well, the social media platforms, where ordinary South Africans obviously made their voices heard as well by speaking to the president and indicating what are the key issues that they believe the president should actually be responding to. So tomorrow at 1400 hours, the state president will, of course, address the nation again, obviously within the context of all of the comments that have now been made, all the critique, all the counter proposals rather also that have been made by all political parties represented in Parliament. So we do look forward to the president's reply, and the president's reply is, of course, scheduled for tomorrow. It is taking place tomorrow at 1400 hours. And of course, the Cape Town City Hall still is the designated venue, the precinct, of course, for as part of the parliamentary precinct, from where the president will be delivering his reply. So we will have more for you tomorrow. We will, of course, unpack. We'll take an hour as part and parcel of our build-up show to unpack some of the key comments that came through from political parties as per what was delivered, all of the speeches that were delivered yesterday and today. And of course, that build-up show will take us into 1400 hours, when the president will then take to the podium and address the country. And of course, we will then as a country be able to hear from the president what is the way forward, and whether some of those counter proposals or suggestions and inputs will be integrated into the plan for the year ahead. With that said, thank you very much for staying with us throughout this day. We do look forward to having you with us again as we unpack critical issues of national importance, issues that affect not only us here, but they affect every South African. With that said, have a good evening.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2023 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the State of the Nation address debate live across Parliament's platforms. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za or follow us on our social media accounts at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.